South Wales coalfield will be turning out best Welsh for a few hundred years yet.
Its character is changing as it turns confidently to what may lie ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good middle of the night and all that kind of stuff. And welcome to the show. Oh, hang on, we've got something rolling around 5 times here. Where's that going? There we go. Go away. Welcome to... hello. Oh, just a minute. I've got the echo from hell here. Good morning, good evening, good What's going on? Just a minute. Kind of stuff. Oh, there we go. That's what it was. It was a monitor coming back at me. And it wouldn't be this show if we didn't have something like that at the beginning. I just found out where it was, so it means my brain's working. You're listening to Paul English Live. This is show number 60. We're here on WBN 324. And we're also on Radio Soapbox. We're on Rumble. We're here for the next couple of hours. Welcome to the show. We're getting towards the end of British summertime here. It's a special sort of British type of summertime. Our clocks go backwards this coming Saturday, and generally the mental condition of the country goes even further backwards when that happens. And we have a kind of change in the rhythm of the show. We've been a little group ensemble for the past few weeks, but tonight we have a returning guest. He'll be up shortly after a bit of blather from yours truly. the drum roll of the ending. Hi, welcome back, everyone. Hope you've had a cracking week. I've had a cracking week, I guess, something like that. This is, as I said there, Paul English Live, edition 60, episode 60, issue 60, whatever word you want to use, show number 60. And before we plough into all of it, I have to play this extremely important message.
Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio. We now need to advise you that all shows that air on our network are strictly over 18 years old. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
Yeah, thank you for listening to WBN 324 Radio. As I said, we're here for the next couple of hours, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. in the UK. We tend to overrun on Rumble, for those of you that can't get enough. We're also on Radio Soapbox. We're on Freefall Radio South Africa. And we're on Global Voice Network. And most of the crew is here already, and our guest is lined up, although I'm keeping him in a little box over there quietly at the moment. He's hearing everything that we're saying. But I just wanted to welcome you all to the show. And been a fun time over here with all sorts of little things going on. But mainly, of course, we're desperately excited about next week's budget over here in Britain. We just can't wait. We're expecting genius moves from our brilliant and amazing government. So that's what we've got to look forward to. And as I may have mentioned last week, what I'll be doing next week, I've been scribbling and knocking it together, hopefully get it finished over the weekend, but is another little spiel from the political party that does not exist with our shadow budget, if that's the right phrase, or a counter budget or something of that sort, because I think there's a budget that everybody wants to hear, but you never hear it, do you? You know the one I'm talking about. During the week, I've been mentioning it to people, saying, oh, the budget. In fact, I was speaking to an elderly lady only the other day. She said, there'll be nothing in it for us, will there? I said, no, you weren't expecting there to be anything in it for you, were you? She said, no. And then I got an earful about the heating allowance for the elderly. We've mentioned it here before. Those of you who are not in the UK, just to let you know, there used to be a thing, I say used to be, there still should be, an allowance for the elderly and the people not so well off to pay their winter heating bills. It was like a fuel allowance. I think it came in at under about £400. Anyway, the genius government that we have at the moment, the latest bunch of actors, have received orders that that's got to be taken away from the elderly, so they're going to suffer. And there have been these horrific sort of pronouncements in the news, probably a bit of psyops. It's difficult to tell with any of this, as many of you know. Can you trust the mainstream media on anything? Not much. Can you trust them to lie? Absolutely, even whether they know that they're doing it or not. And so there's a lot of discord about that, understandably. It's not a particularly nice thing that's been happening. So we'll probably report on that a little bit more, because I'd imagine that will come up, or there'll be some kind of, probably some concessions maybe in the wonderful budget next week. I don't know even who's delivering it. It's usually some economic oaf that they put in, who talks nonsense for 15 or 20 minutes, and then all the political analysts and all the talking heads have an absolute field day for the next week, banging on about this, that and the other, all of it complete piffle, won't make any difference at all, just like every other budget you've ever heard in your life. How about that? In media news over here, there's a gentleman over here who has been running a show for many years called Richie Allen. And Shelley Tasker, who's a friend of mine, she let me know a few days ago. And Richie Allen's been going for about 10 years. He's not everybody's cup of tea, and not everything that he says is my cup of tea. And I think he kind of knows that with regards, we could say that really about everybody. You know, there's bits of what people say that we like. Although, of course, I know you like everything that I say. No, it's absolutely not true. But he's been behind the mic 4 days a week for just about 10 years. I think it was a 10-year anniversary. And I think he's, well, I don't know the full story of it, but he's going away, I think, ostensibly to recharge his batteries, whether he comes back to do his 4 days a week drive time show. So that's what we call it over here. I don't know what you guys call it in the States, but drive time on the radio clock is 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And he's done a very lively show with some cracking shows and things that I wasn't particularly fond of and this, that and the other. But, as I said, we can say that about everybody. Anyway, as far as we're aware, he's hanging up his mic for a while, maybe for a long while, but he'll still be carrying on with the Sunday morning show, which I think is Merry Melodies, or I don't know what it's called. I've probably mullered that. But he does a musical show on the Sunday mornings, which I don't really catch. But anyway, good luck to him, because anybody, no matter what you may think about the overall content, anybody that's contributing into this space, we need as many of them as we can get. Even the people that you disagree with, we need lots of those too, because it's all grist for the mill. Anyway, without further ado, there's more items to bring up, and we'll jump into those as we see fit. But I'd just like to welcome in the regular crew. And Patrick, have you managed to get back behind a proper microphone now? Are you back at base?
I think so.
You sound delightful. Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was great. You had a good week?
Quite a good week, yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It's a rather overcast day here, but good weather nonetheless. And most of the leaves have fallen off. There's some few clingers left, but
clingers.
Yeah. We've
we've
got a lot of leaves to rake at the moment.
Wow.
But really good weather and good. Been good myself.
Oh well, that's good. I'm trying to ignore the leaves. My my highly sophisticated professional studio here, which is my converted garage, is sited underneath a very large chestnut tree, and the leaves now are. Well, there's a lot of them, and they've got a bit damp because we had some rain about 2 or 3 days ago. But the previous week, maybe it's this for the past 2 or 3 weeks, maybe I've only got one story to tell, but we've had a few fires in the garden on the Sunday. They've been absolutely fantastic. I just realised how pleasant it is to not watch any electronic devices and just sit out in the open air, and it was pretty mild, and just burn a fire, burning things. It's very primeval, isn't it? And the crackle of the twigs, the leaves, the smoke, the stink on your jumper. It's great. I love it. It's fantastic. So we've been doing a bit of that. And yeah, I suppose we've got a few clingers too. I've probably got a few clingers around here, so they'll probably fall in the next few days. So great, good to have you here, Patrick, as always. And Paul, welcome back. Are you with us, Paul?
Yeah, I'm in and out here, hither and fro, here and there.
Wow, you sound quite relaxed. You sound really relaxed. Well, should I get relaxed like you, and we should drop the volume down?
I'm always quite relaxed when this show is on.
I know. Now, you don't you have some interesting domestic challenges of your own right now, or is it too difficult to talk about?
You could say that, yes.
Without
going into it further, you could say that, yes.
Oh, I was hoping to catch up. I wanted to get all the lowdown on the whole thing and what's going on. So you don't want to say a word? Is it secret squirrel, all this?
No, actually, no. I'm just, I'm in the process of moving, so
Yep.
I'm in the process of packing, cleaning, sorting, organizing, and all that stuff. And I'm also in the process of trying to get a vehicle running,
Right.
so I can actually shuttle stuff from here to there. And it's been fun. It's been challenging, and it's been fun.
Yeah. So you're moving, and you've got to move what by the end of this month? Is that right?
Yep.
Right.
Where are you moving?
By the
Montana?
end of this month, and just to to add insult to injury, about a week ago yesterday, there was a fraud alert on my debit card, which my bank promptly used to cancel my debit card and reissue me a new one, which I have not gotten yet. So at the time when I need access to money at a moment's notice, I'm waiting for a card in the mail. Oh,
Wow. That you must be.
I am literally living a very real world example of what is wrong with central bank digital currency.
Now you're talking my language, Paul. That's great. That's really good.
You
That's
just
excellent.
need to go and withdraw a bunch of cash from your account.
Yeah, a bunch of cash. And look at the clingers. This is interesting today, Patrick. A bunch of cash. So go get a bunch of cash. And, can you still get bunches of cash over there? You can, surely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, I can. But,
And,
there's
yeah,
a
go
lot
on.
of stuff that I need to do that I cannot do with cash. How do you set up like a internet server in another country
Yes.
or in the cloud somewhere without being able to pay the bill to set up the account?
Is that important? Oh,
That's
yeah,
where
it is.
friends come in.
Yeah.
Oh,
Have
yeah,
you got
yeah,
friends,
I
Paul?
suppose.
Paul, have you got friends?
One could never be too sure.
I had some once. They were great. They were really good. I must get some back. That would be good. My other question for you with regards to the fact that obviously you're in logistical upheaval mode and enjoying. Have you found anything so far that you haven't seen for years as you gather all your stuff up? Other things?
Actually, I have. Yes, I have found a couple of things. Yes,
Yeah?
things I was actually looking for.
Oh, really? Well, that's a bonus. That's good.
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
Good.
Tools, books, all kinds of things.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, well, I actually found a computer that I've been missing for God knows how long.
What, you... Oh, right. Oh, yeah, because you're not short of computers. I mean, you are short of computers. You probably haven't got enough, have you? You need more computers.
Well, this was a computer that I wanted to use as a Linux server because I wanted to set up a firewall and hide everything that I do in the house, like particularly with live streams and radio programs and stuff like that, behind a firewall, because the one machine that I use for hosting radio programs gets literally hundreds of thousands of DOS attack hits over the internet every week, and if the machine was less capable than it is, it would take it down. There would be a denial of service, and show would go off air. So
that's always fun, isn't it? Isn't that fun?
I want to hide that behind a firewall. Something simple and stupid to take the brunt of the attacks, so the machine can just sit back and idle, going yada da 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 da.
Wow. Hey, so does that mean when we do the show on October the 31st, because that is the last, it's a week today, the last show of this month happens to fall on the last day of the month, will you be with us next Thursday, or are you going to be up to your eyes in boxes and packing crates and shouting at removal men? What's going to be going on? You won't be here.
Probably won't be here.
What are we going to do?
I don't know. I don't have a clue.
I'm worried already.
Maybe I can dial in by telephone.
Maybe. I think it would be a little unfair. Although, if you were to do that and you were all stressed out and shouting, that would make for good radio, wouldn't it? We'd quite like that.
Oh, yes, it would.
That would be great.
Oh, it absolutely would.
Yeah.
That would be must-hear radio. And now that you've just reminded me that I have exactly 7 days to have all this done, thank you very much. Now you just you just put the stress level right back where it was before the show started.
Well, I'm here to help. I'm glad to be of any assistance I can be, Paul. Maybe that's a blessing in disguise. It's given you a keen little edge. You're all motivated now because you've seen the big task before you. I dread to even think about what I would do if we had to move from here. I'm shuddering thinking about it. You get so entrenched in a place. I shouldn't go on about this, should I? I'm sure you've got all this stuff coming up. Anyway, maybe by the time you get to your destination, you'll be lighter. You'll have a lot less stuff in your life, and that's always generally a pretty good thing. Unless, of course, it's stuff that you really loved, and then you weep forever. You go, I should never have thrown that away. Yeah, sorry. Blokes are hoarders.
Yeah,
are you a hoarder,
no,
Patrick? Are you a hoarder?
Yeah, I'm looking over at a pile of junk cluttered in my room on the floor. So yeah, I'm a little bit of a hoarder. Not a big hoarder.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Quick shout out to everybody in the Rumble chat. Hi, everybody there. Already very lively. Lots of text messages flowing through, which I haven't had a chance to even look at yet. I was just glad to stop off the sound coming back to Rumble. That's what I cocked up there at the beginning. So I don't know why. I normally have Rumble completely muted, but it decided to make a din. So that was a little bit confusing. But yeah, shout out to everybody in the Rumble chat. If you're listening on the radio, wherever you may be, WBN, Soapbox or whatever, and you want to type things because, you've just got the urge, if you head on over to the Rumble room, you'll be able to get stuck. And you need a Rumble account, of course, but they're free. You get the link to that over at paulenglishlive.com. So, and we'll be going through some comments once I can get my eyeballs working properly. And speaking of eyeballs, I mentioned that interview, didn't I, last week with Dr. Jack Cruz, the 4.25 hour interview? I did mention it. I've mentioned it probably the last couple of weeks, I think. Anyway, if any of you have seen it or heard me talking about it, he during the interview, he wears these orange glasses. And I want you to know that mine are on me right now. That's probably why I'm going to end up pressing all the wrong buttons. But they cut out all the nasties from computer screens, and particularly from phones. It turns out that phones are the big baddies in all this, because they use this blue light thing, the blue light technology, and it gives you a dopamine hit, and it literally makes you addicted, almost like physiologically, to looking at your screen. How about that? Isn't that interesting? And apparently the phones are the worst culprit, which shouldn't really surprise us, I guess, because, they are the most ubiquitous piece of technology. So I guess we're going to have to get used to the idea of the next generation literally having a bent neck and being dopamine junkies unless they get these orange glasses.
Haven't you seen like a sea of people? Being a people watcher, you've probably seen this. A sea of people, all with the bent neck, just lazily swiping up with their finger, completely oblivious to everything going on around them. All they're worried about is scrolling to the next story, the next meme, the next post, the next update,
the next hit. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
And then you add headphones to that, and they're even more oblivious.
Oh,
you even try talking to them, they can't even hear you at that point.
I know.
Right.
It's not good. It's
not
not
as
good.
far as the light, though, can't you just change the color settings on your phone to be orange?
Phones, you can't do that, but I have decreased the blue light on both of my monitors for my computer by 40%. So everything that I'm looking at looks kind of brown, but I don't care.
It's autumnal. You've got an autumnal computer experience going on, haven't you? No, it's fantastic.
Yes, well, it's about that time of year, right?
It is. It is. I was. I did a little funny thing with mine today. I was down visiting my wife in the hospital today, and she's on a ward with all these really delightful elderly lady patients there, most of whom I may have mentioned are in there because they walk into things or they fall over. Note to everybody, don't fall over when you get old. It's really brought it home to me. You go a very dark colour very, very quickly, and it's a big problem. So most of them are in there for that. But I had my orange glasses and was going around and letting them try them on today. I think I sold 2 pairs, or maybe I actually foolishly decided to give them away as a gift. I might order some pairs for them. And, oh, these are very nice. I said, yeah, they are. It makes everything look like summer, so it kind of cheers you up. Not that they're necessarily needed in the open air. They allow ultraviolet light through, which you need, but they block all the blue light, which is also what you need. So there we go. If you value your eyes, and maybe we all ought to be doing that, considering the amount of screen time we've got, they're probably a worthwhile investment. They probably are.
Do you know what I'm sitting underneath right now?
What are you sitting underneath, Paul, right now? I don't know. How many guesses have we got?
My head.
Yeah.
3 feet above my head.
An anvil on a string.
No. 3 feet above my head is a 150 watt infrared heat lamp. Just 150 watts. It's just like a little warm, and I'm literally bathed in red light right now. So.
Fantastic.
Oh, good.
Well, speaking of lights and spotlights and things like that, as I probably mentioned to you chaps before, we have a returning guest this evening, Mr.
As you can see, we've had our eye on you for some time now, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Oh, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. And I'd like you to know that our guest this evening is Mr. Anderson. And if I can just unmute him right now, he's going to join us. I can't. Where have he gone? There he is. Well, that buggered up my intro, didn't it? Look at that, buggered it up. Where have you gone? Mr. Anderson. I can't seem to add him to the chat. That's very strange. He's actually in the studio, but he can't be added. I thought I'd done that right now. Kicked from the studio, banned from the studio. And I don't want to kick him at all, but I can't seem to add him in. Mr. Anderson, if you can hear us, could you, Mr. Anderson, if you could maybe leave the room and come back in, because for some let me just try and do this. For some strange reason, I'm going to have to restart the session here. Here we go. That was, you know what? That was going so well up until that point, wasn't it? Wasn't that going well? It really was.
Well, yes, it was.
It was. It was really good. Here we go. There we go.
I'm here.
Mr.
There he is.
Anderson. Hi. So, everybody, welcome to this is this week's guest, Thomas Anderson. Some of you may have tuned in for the shows we did quite a while back now. In fact, I checked, maybe, I don't know, quite a few months ago. But, Thomas, it's good to have you back from your adventures in the Matrix. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Hello, Mr. English. Nice to be back.
It's great. It's good. And we've had a few little chats in the run-up to today's show. And I've loosely termed the fact that we were going to talk about today the legal status of Germany, or the lawful status of Germany, or the unlawful status of Germany, because it's something that you've just written something about recently, about the actual lawful, legal, illegal, unlawful status that Germany currently finds itself in. So we're all ears and ready to pitch in.
Perhaps we should mention also the second topic we would like to talk about, that was framing, let's say the linguistic weapon of mass destruction, framing.
Framing. So by framing you mean the misunderstanding of words, that kind of thing.
I don't mean the misunderstanding. I mean the misuse, the misuse of words artificially created to simply calm down people and so they keep their mouths shut.
Yes. Like what? Give me one word that you're thinking of.
Like for example, anti-vaxxer, or a climate change denier, or even better, climate denier.
Yes. Climate deniers are quite fun, aren't they, really? Now we've got a little echo. Let me just see where it's coming from. Just hold on. Where's that coming from? Don't know where it's coming from. Never mind. Climate denier is a ridiculous phrase, really. It's like denying that we've actually got weather. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, everybody who's called a climate denier is of course, in most of the time, someone who keeps telling the truth about certain topics. For example, that there is a climate change, but it's not man-made, and if he's speaking these words, he is already within the scope of intelligence services, etc.
Yes. Well, I'm not a climate denier. Climate. What's the other one? A climate change denier. Do you want to hear what Al Gore has to say about this? You ready for a laugh to start off with? This is Al Gore. This is the man who invented the internet. You remember Al Gore? Listen to this.
The climate crisis is a fossil fuel crisis, and the fossil fuel industry is the wealthiest and most powerful industry in the history of the world. They fight ferociously to stop anything that would in any way reduce the consumption of fossil fuels. And they've proven they're way better at capturing politicians than capturing emissions. We need systemic change. And luckily, we now have the alternatives that are better, cleaner, cheaper. And so what we need are policies to accelerate this transition. And that means we've got to counter the information warfare. I use the term loosely, I know, but it's kind of an information war being waged by the fossil fuel industry against the efforts to make these changes that are essential to safeguard the future of humanity.
Do you think...
he is right.
Yeah. Well, in a way, he's sort of right. But there's a little bar.
Well, he's surely right. What he makes of that is a completely different thing. But generally, he's speaking about completely right. Fossil fuel is a problem, not because it's not fossil, not because it's not ending and there's no peak oil, but it's a never-ending resource. Nobody's talking about that. But that's not the point. We could have much cleaner energy. And the people tell us, yeah, buy yourself an electric car that's totally clean. No, it's not. The ecological footprint of a Tesla is devastating, and it's much worse than the normal diesel or petrol car. So when we are speaking about really clean energy, we might need to speak about electric energy, yes, but when we then take a look at history, then we find Nikola Tesla, who had a car in 1918, I think it was, an electric car working with electricity, but without a battery. He simply had an antenna on this car. He drove at a speed of 140 miles. That's quite fast.
Yes.
And he didn't have to refuel it because it ran from free energy. So when we want to talk about clean energy, we should reduce the topic of batteries, because batteries are a big problem, because they're really there's a lot of waste because of all these batteries. They have to be exchanged after a couple of years because they don't work anymore. And of course, that makes sense for the economy because you have to buy for it. And that's the point. The people, they want the people to go to some kind of petrol station or battery refill station or battery recharging station or battery exchange station, whatever. They want the customers to come back and bring back their money again.
No.
And we shouldn't have that. When we talk about clean energy, and we should talk about free energy. And there is free energy, but we don't have the access to it.
Well, we're kind of denied. I mean, it's interesting. So a climate change denier is someone that stands in the way, you see, of this drive for electric cars. Yet, as you've rightfully pointed out, the ecological damage created by the manufacture of these cars, just in the manufacturing process alone, dwarfs the so-called harm that's attributed to the current combustion engines. And I heard something the other day. Lithium, of course, which is this prime ingredient currently for the battery technology of the day, is the demand for it between now and 2040, over the next 15 years, it is expected to increase 40-fold. That's, 4,000% increase in the demand for lithium if these complete stupid people like Al Gore are allowed to continue to run around with these stupid ideas that nobody wants. I mean, I remember when Teslas came out, initially they appeared to be very attractive, but you have to let the dust settle. And they're not electric cars. They're battery cars would be a much better way of describing them, because without the batteries, they're no good. And we've mentioned here before, I think they're lethal in so many ways. And I think this must be part of the plan. They're designed to be lethal, particularly like in very simple accident situations, which turn out to be hellishly difficult to suppress. For example, if you were to inadvertently drive your car into a river. This is very, very bad. What with the doors all operating electrically, you're probably not going to get out unless you're armed with one of these pneumatic jackhammer things that can smash this bulletproof resistant glass. You're going to drown in there. And the other thing, I mean, there was a horrific thing that was reported, I think it was last week. Now, it was someone in one of these Toyotas. Is that a Prius or something like that? A kind of hybrid car? They'd been struck by another car on the M6 over here. There'd been an absolute inferno, and everybody in this Prius that had been hit by the other car, with the exception of one small child, poor bugger, who's 7, he lost his entire family. They were killed almost instantly because of the inferno that sprang up. These things are ridiculous. I'm not saying, of course, that fires in car accidents don't happen at all. There's that horrific car. What was it? The one in America where it was basically sort of the Pinto. The Pinto was the great bomb on wheels, wasn't it? But these things are ludicrous. And so, but this fits their model, doesn't it? already there will be futures and options market traders looking at lithium and taking positions on it, and they will now be in support of the presence of electric cars because they will be financially exposed, as it were, to the lithium market, seeking to get great gain from it with a technology that, frankly, is just crap. I mean, it's absolutely crap, and we need to let everybody know just how crap it is, and people should not be buying these bloody things because, frankly, they're just crap, aren't they?
Yeah. Hey, Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
I just wanted to go on record as saying that the whole thing about a massive lithium deposit being discovered in the Appalachian Mountains that just got torn to bits by a hurricane. Oh, that's complete conspiracy theory.
I think it's just it's just one of those funny coincidences, Paul, in history, you know, like 9/11 and the Titanic and, there's not...
You mean the Olympic?
I mean the Olympic, yeah, I did.
But that's another story.
I like being surrounded by clever dicks. You're absolutely right. We'll have to get John Hamer on here. By the way, there's someone that we've not introduced yet because I didn't see that he was there. But Eric, I see that you're muted, but you're also in the studio. Can you hear me, good sir? And could you there? Eric, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
We're fine. We're fine. You're in the same studio as our guest of honour this evening, Mr. Anderson. So Thomas is in there with you.
Hello. And no, I've had a week of this, that, and the other, and too much this and that. But apart from that, I'm all right, you know. And you've been talking about your Klingons with your leaves and things, your leaves falling off the trees and things like that.
I think it was Patrick that's got clingers, they're called.
Yeah. Clingers, are they? Because I was going to say, but it's too dirty to mention on the show, so I won't mention it.
I know where you're going.
Star Trek toilet paper that guarantees to get all the Klingons out. So there we go. But I won't decided not to mention it because it's too rude. You see, and how's things with you, Patrick? Is winter started yet, or is it still autumn, or what's happened?
It's getting cold. We had some cold weather yesterday morning. Not quite long john weather yet, but getting there. Soon enough, I'll have to have a fire in the fireplace.
Oh, that's nice. They're trying to ban us having fires over here. They're trying to stop you burning wood and things like that because of all this eco rubbish.
Coal.
I think they're going to try. They're going to try and chop down trees to stop us burning wood, because what's happening?
Then we won't have any wood to burn.
Correct. See, think of their logic. But near where I live, I'm going to take a photograph of it. There's these battery storage areas. There's a field. I don't know if you've got them in the States yet, where they're going to have these like huge batteries that are about the size of a shipping container, and it's to store energy for something that comes from solar or windmills or some ridiculous thing. And we got a field full of them near where I live. Has anybody else noticed that in chat or where you are in America or in Germany?
Yeah, we have places like that where they'll just take a farmer field and they'll just throw in these ugly looking solar panels all over the place and say it's for the green, it's green thing, you know. It's like, well, you're taking away all the greenery by doing that. There's nothing left to look at that's any good. They're ugly.
These things are a mystery because there's no solar panels or windmills nearby. So where the power is coming from, I do not know. But they're grey, a sort of a miserable grey colour. And there's this huge, well, I wouldn't say that huge, but it's a large field full of them. They look pretty creepy. They're not nice, I'll tell you that. Have you
fun?
On your travel? Have you got any down where you are, Paul?
I'm not aware of them, no. Which bit particularly? The windmills or what?
Well, no, there's no windmills or solar panels as far as I know around here. But these are the storage batteries.
No, we don't have any of that. We've got 1,400 million pounds worth of wind farms stuck in the middle of the sea. Well, when I say the middle, it's about 2 miles out. They're hideous and useless. And they're hideous and useless. That's all you can really say for them, really. Thomas, in Germany, you guys a few years ago were sort of keen on wind power. Is that still the case over there?
Unfortunately, yes. We start to get to the point where there's no land left to place any windmill. And on top comes the first windmills now in the age of, let's say, around 18, 20, 22 years. And that's the end of their lifetime. And there's a very big problem of recycling because nobody wants to have those old rotor blades because nobody knows what to do with them. The best solution and extremely intelligent engineers came up with is burning them. And there's a company in the near of Bremen in the north of Germany who burns those blades, and they have a capacity of around 4,000 tons. I think I remember it right, 4,000 tons a year. And the actual amount of waste is now, I think, a little bit less than 20,000 tons. Right. And it's getting more every month. So we are running into a very big problem there. There is, of course, a technology which would be able to do all that, but there's no financing for this technology.
What technology would that be, Thomas?
That would be, I hope I can find the right, the correct English term. It's chemocatalytical cracking, something like that.
That
so
sounded great.
It's you heat it up under a vacuum and then you oil it, and it's basically like a refinery. So you can make gas oil out of this trash, out of these old rotor blades.
Oh wow! Well, that's good. I mean, the one that I'm particularly keen on is, and I still don't understand why we don't have this, is, well, I do actually. It's because, like you were mentioning earlier, it's a regular theme, but we need to keep repeating it. Because free energy would mean that they can't put a petrol pump attendant between you and driving your car, because they can't administer the fuel to you, because you can just go to it direct. It's not very attractive to them. But the fuel that I'm particularly keen on is water, particularly through electrolysis and splitting it into hydrogen. So the fuel I'm particularly keen on is hydrogen that you can get from water. And if anybody's looked around on planet Earth, or plain Earth for people that don't do the globe thing, there's quite a bit of water down here. I've noticed this quite a bit. And it would seem to me, I mean, I've mentioned, well, I've thought for years, you think, well, if I get some money, I'm going to buy this is the car that I want to get. That's kind of the boys thing. I'm kind of past all that, or at least I think I am. Maybe if I had a huge wad in my pocket, I might go, yes, I do need to buy a Ferrari, and be one of those middle-aged old farts pounding around in it, pretending that I'm 25 again, which would be a bit stupid. But you do see that sort of thing going on. But I'd be very keen on getting an old Volvo that's all mechanical window winders, and having somebody convert the diesel to just run on water. Now, doesn't that sort of help Al Gore out in the World Economic Forum and all these people? I mean, it seems to me that would answer all their problems. Or am I just being childish, simplistic, naive and stupid all at the same time?
Maybe. Well, we listened to Al Gore. You put some audio in from Al Gore, and basically what he said there, all is correct. I'm with that in every single word. However, Al Gore is the one who brought up this CO2 hoax and told the world that CO2 is very bad for us, and it produces a lot of heat on this planet, and we are now close to the cooking. We have to cool down somehow. We have to get rid of CO2. Well, that's nonsense. The world is running on CO2. The plants need it, and when the plants are happy, we are happy because the plants produce more oxygen for us.
Yeah, there's a thing, called, I haven't got the website here, but anybody could look it up, called the CO2 Coalition, the Carbon Dioxide Coalition. It seems as though, I mean, they're right in what they're saying, but they're a bit tame in the way that they put their arguments forward. They're a bit too reasonable for my taste, but they're saying exactly that. There is no carbon dioxide crisis. Actually, there's not enough carbon dioxide, is what I hear from many scientists. We've got the lightest load of carbon dioxide we'd had for a long time. And, you know, the only thing is, when he said in that clip about a fossil fuel crisis, well, it's probably not fossils. That's my take. So what is it? Abiotic oil theory is the one that I would subscribe to. It's like a natural sap that the earth is producing all the time. There's just colossal quantities of oil, and apparently these oil wells, when they go back to them, they've all replenished abiotic fluid, I think it's called, or something like that. So, and I understand that the Rockefellers were involved in coining the phrase, or trying to get this word fossil fuel, coming back to your thing about words, which is a key thing here. We come on to words quite regularly here because they're the key sort of starting point of all the tomfoolery and the deception. But Rockefeller said, call it fossil fuels, because that was the idea of creating the idea that it would run out, and therefore you had to go to Standard Oil because they were organized and they were going to, you know, provide you with all the oil that you needed. Now, oil is needed in manufacturing. I mean, it's great stuff. Engineers need oil for machine parts and all that kind of stuff. But as a fuel, I don't think so. I don't think we really need it as a fuel. And there have been so many other fuels that are better than that. I mean, Ford fueled all his cars on hemp. He grew hemp and distilled it, didn't he, into some kind of a whatever it was, and actually ran them on hemp fuel, made them out of hemp. So all the answers to all their questions have already been discovered, and they killed them off then. So I think we can say safely that this is nothing to do about following the science, because there's a complete lack of it. And, you know, it's difficult for Al Gore really to be taken too seriously, particularly given as he was the man that invented the internet, you know, which is really quite a thing. And yet since then, his track record's pretty poor. He seems to get everything wrong. I mean, we've always viewed Germany, or I have anyway, as being sort of kind of very keen on advanced environmental fuel systems, that kind of thing. Of course, you've got this. Actually, that's another thing I was just thinking in terms of just the state of Germany right now. What's the situation with the car manufacturers? Because is it Volkswagen that are about to lay off, supposedly, a large part of the workforce, or that the demand for their cars is nosediving or something to that effect? What's the sort of story and mood over there in Germany with regards to Volkswagen, etc.?
Well, in Germany, they had, of course, the big marketing campaigns for the electric cars, and the government brought out some premiums. When you buy an electric car, you get 4,000 cash, 10,000 cash, whatever. Mm-hmm. And that didn't have the success they expected. So the sales numbers are not as good as expected, and there are a lot of brand new cars somewhere parked in wherever in Germany, brand new cars which nobody wants to have and nobody wants to buy, and so they are in a kind of crisis because of that. And of course the manufacturing facilities have to, let's say, slow down massively or even shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, coming back to Al Gore. We talked about CO2. Perhaps for the listeners, it might be interesting that when they hear certain numbers, which you mentioned that some people say there's not enough CO2. When you take a look at very old scientific books, encyclopedia, lexica, whatever, when you go back to 1800 and let's say 1880. You find the same numbers as you will find them today in real scientific papers. The amount of CO2 in our atmosphere is 0.004%.
That's too much.
And out of these 0.004%, we are responsible, if you take those 0.004% as 100%, we are responsible for 3%. So when we reduce those 3% we are responsible for by 10%, we are talking about 0.00000. I don't know how many zeros there are, but we are talking about a very small part. And when they sometimes come up with a number that they say that the CO2 has risen from 0.003 to 0.004, perhaps became less, whatever. These two numbers are still on the papers, and when you read it right, it's simply the difference between the percentage in volume and between the percentage in weight. The percentage in weight is 0.004, the percentage in volume is 0.003. So if somebody uses these numbers, if he even knows them, that's already a good thing. But if he uses those numbers, he uses them mostly in the wrong way. And those numbers are still the same. It has nothing has changed. The numbers are the same as 100 years ago and as 1,000 years ago.
I mean, another thing that hasn't changed is that the certain members of the scientific community are easily bought off to come out with this guff to support this non-idea, are they not? We've had it for a long time. You get it in the weather circles. They just talk bilge all the time. And just going back to this sort of use of words and trigger words and misunderstanding and how people sort of glom onto these things. If we go back to the sort of COVID thing, of course, we're all aware that vast swathes of people blithely just went along with what they were told by the talking heads from supposedly the all-knowing government. You know, that's the way they perceived it. And did terrible things to themselves and their relatives by getting jabbed and God knows what else that happened to them. So you think, well, that's just a disease that infects the plebs, us lot, the peasants, right? But it's not. The middle management of this country is also infused with the same stupidity, particularly when it comes to this climate stuff. They blithely follow along. I saw something recently, some local council, I can't remember where it was, here in the UK. The guy, maybe it was down in Cornwall or Dorset or somewhere like that, was saying that they were planning to become the first zero emissions or zero rated pollutant free county in England by 2030. And you look at the guy that's saying this and you're just thinking, can you think? And the answer has to be no. The answer has to be no. These people cannot think. It seems to me there's a thinking crisis first before there's anything else, because this seems to apply to every field of endeavour. We've got people who have lost touch with their own ability to decide things. No one's doing it. It's actually got to such a compliant state of pathetic obedience to nonsense ideas. And, you know, I don't know whether it's evil. We throw that word around, and it is evil in terms of what's taking place. But maybe what's more scary is an attack of the stupids. It's stupidity that seems to be the growing disease. It's the number one. There's too much stupidity in the world, not too much carbon dioxide. And we need something to reduce the amount of stupidity. Then we might be able to, assist people to actually see what is actually occurring as opposed to what they're realizing or dreaming or envisioning, And I guess the governments have to, whether they do it knowingly or not, they're continually in the drama production business, are they not? They have to create these stories, these anxiety stories all the time, which work to keep the people distracted, depressed, as it were, or a lack of aliveness, concerned and anxious about their futures, because the planet, or the plane, what's going to go on? We need the government to save us. They're continually in this process of creating a demand for their caring services. We're going to look after you. And it's that old thing with friends like this, who needs enemies? So, I mean, all these things are intertwined. So they're just as stupid as everybody else. It's just that, I guess, because they have the media behind them, which is definitely the case, they're able to convince huge numbers of people that, well, everybody agrees with this chap, There obviously is too much carbon dioxide. People just assume that that's a case because they've got out of the habit of actually questioning things themselves directly. Unlike all the reprobates here and most of the reprobates in Rumble and all you reprobates out there listening on WBN and elsewhere, most of you are asking questions.
Have you heard of Technocracy Incorporated? Sorry, I just wanted
No,
to
Technocracy Incorporated. No, Patrick. What is that?
It was a movement in the 20s and the 30s to basically make it so that instead of politicians, we had scientists guiding everybody and governments. But it's the guy who helped start it was working for one of these big oil companies and coined the term fossil fuels. And I was also Elon Musk's grandfather was part of the movement up in Canada.
Right.
So
now I had heard that
little tidbit.
That's a good tidbit. Yeah. I mean, how do you find people of integrity to sit in these power centers who have not been corrupted by money or, in most cases now, something far worse? They are corrupted, by many of them, by something far worse that's been going on with... You only have to look at the caliber of the individuals that come forward and end up in these positions of so-called political power to know, I would say this of just about every nation, that none of them are the best that that nation could provide. Not one of them. None of them. And yet here we are being governed by these people. Are there, I mean, in Germany, Thomas, are there organizations and movements thoroughly against electric cars? And are there organization movements trying to propose something like water cars? And if there are, have they been shot yet?
I know personally a guy who has managed to drive his car on water. Of course, there's no financial success, no economical success with him. Of course, there's no official government entity taking care of that. They all want to go the way you mentioned before, with which would be hydrogen, because hydrogen again would be a way to get the people going to some kind of petrol station, or hydrogen station in this case, and to somehow refuel their car. I'm still of the opinion that if we want to talk about clean energy, we should talk about free energy, and when we talk about free energy, why not electric energy? When we can get this electric energy with an antenna into our car, oh, great, nice idea. And it was there already with Nikola Tesla in 1918, so we could have that anytime. It's old school technology. It's nothing new.
Well, Eric was on here the other week. He's on here right now, and Eric was up with in fact, I mentioned this to you, Thomas, before it happened. We had some Italian electric vegetable farmers over here, didn't we, Eric, that you were up with a couple of weeks ago?
That's right. Yeah. Yes, we had electric cucumbers a lot, yeah.
Yeah. And they're doing exactly what you're saying, except for transportation. And I think you know about this, don't you, Mr. Anderson? They're using it to grow vegetables way beyond their natural size, enormous vegetables, which the English are very interested in large vegetables. We ought to be. We've been electing them for thousands of years to govern us, but that's what's been going on. We've got a close affinity with the very large, stupid vegetable. But yeah, so that's a similar thing. They're talking about using, steel antennas and copper wires in the ground, and it's quite precise to get it going. But, the Tesla story I'm familiar with is the journalist that interviewed him, I think he's about 1934, something like that, early 30s. And he drew up in a Packard, he had a Packard that had been converted to basically suck the energy out of the ether and just run around forever on it. So, why don't we do that? Of course, they would probably tell us, there's going to be an energy in the atmosphere crisis. There'll be one of those. There'll always be a crisis because they'll look for where they can create the fiction that there is one, because that's what they always do, it seems to me.
Yeah, that's basically the point. Yeah. we are all still online, but we talk so much that we didn't find a way to answer.
I'll be quiet now. Go on, say a few things then. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, but I guess when you talked about a problem, the problem of stupidity, I'm with you that stupidity is a big problem. But when we take a look at the corona or COVID pandemic, whatever, scandemic you call it, we have a lot of very intelligent people who got their vaccination, who thought it was a good thing. Some of them, meanwhile, have changed their opinion and say, well, it might be that I did something wrong, or maybe it was not such a good thing. but still they are very intelligent. And however, they came to a different conclusion than you came to, and I came to. So we decided it was not a good thing. They decided it was a good thing. And I think that the scientific method of framing has a very big importance when we look at such situations.
Yes.
For example, when we take the word anti-vaxxer, this word was used for all those people who were telling the other ones, "Don't get the jab, don't take it, don't take it, don't take it." This word was used to calm them down, to let them keep their mouth shut, because they should be afraid of losing their financial situation, their financial advantages, their economical situation should be at risk. They should have a lot of disadvantages when you were named with this word, and that the people who were named anti-vaxxers, they were afraid. It's simply true.
Yes.
So they kept their mouth shut. It worked. It worked great. And on the other side, the people who used these words and probably read those words on the newspapers and entered this frame set and then carried on using these words and talked to the friends. He's an anti-vaxxer too. He's an anti-vaxxer. When you are using such frame sets, you're automatically doomed to use the arguments given to this frame set. So when you talk about anti-vaxxers, you automatically enter a world of arguments which was set up by your enemies. And for example, when you talk about anti-vaxxers, you automatically deny that those people might not be against vaccination, but only be against this vaccination. Maybe they are not generally against vaccinations. Maybe they perhaps like the idea of the let's say the mechanical the medical background of the topic of vaccination. That means you get an old type of virus or other thing, you make it inactive, and you introduce this particle to your body so that your immune system starts to learn how this particle looks like, and then can later on react faster on an infection with this illness. That sounds logic to me. So I would call myself not an anti-vaxxer, but I would call myself an anti-mRNA vaxxer, if you might use this new word.
Yes.
And I'm also against all these very modern vaccinations which contain aluminum, quicksilver, mercury, and other very poisonous parts. I'm against this. But the reason why they're using the simple word anti-vaxxer, or in German it would be Schwurbler, or there are many different words to disinform people and to keep them away, and to push those thinking people into a certain not very pleasant corner, to get their business running and do whatever they want to do with the people.
Yeah.
So frame sets like anti-vaxxer or anti-Semite or climate change denier are used to somehow ensure that their business is running, their CO2 certificates are sold well, and they can do whatever they want up there in the government area.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's absolutely the case. There'll be some new words coming along to describe the next sort of crisis that they're creating, the next storylines. It's like a storyline production system. Anyway, just hold whatever thoughts you've got at the moment. We've just gone past the top of the hour, so it's time for a song. You're listening to Paul English Live here on WBN 324 and other assorted networks. We have an appropriate song here regarding an old form of energy, and we'll be back after this.
till I'm so blue, pure, perfect. I'm gonna put a smile on everybody's face. I'm gonna kneel and pray every day, lest I should become vain along the way. I'm just an old chunk of coal now, Lord, but I'm gonna be a diamond someday. I'm gonna learn the best way to walk. I'm gonna search and find a better way to talk. I'm gonna spit and polish my old rough-edged self till I get rid of every single flaw. I'm gonna be the world's best friend. I'm gonna go around shaking everybody's hand. Hey, I'm gonna be the cotton-picking rage of the age. I'm gonna be a diamond someday. Now I'm just an old chunk of coal, but I'm gonna be a diamond someday. I'm gonna grow and glow till I'm so blue, pure, perfect. I'm gonna put a smile on everybody's face. I'm gonna kneel and pray every day, unless I should become vain along the way. Hey, I'm just an old chunk of coal now, Lord, but I'm gonna be a diamond someday.
Attention all listeners, are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
And welcome back to, well, slightly less than hour two. It's just gone 7 minutes past 9 here in the UK, 7 minutes past 4 US Eastern Time. You're listening to Paul English Live here on WBN 324. We're here every Thursday, 3 till 5 US Eastern, 8 till 10 UK time. And we'll be sticking to that. I don't know what happens with the clock changes actually with WBN. I think it might affect the US Eastern Time because I think the base time for WBN is UK GMT or whatever it currently is, or British Summertime or British Wintertime or bafflingly complicated stuff. And of course, it's all a bit of a nonsense anyway, isn't it, Mr. Anderson? Because the second is not what it used to be. I remember that big discussion we had about the length of the second some time ago.
Yeah, it's already half a year ago. I don't remember it right.
It is.
Right. Yeah. I think when you're interested, or when the listeners are interested in the Earth's original second length, then they should listen to I think it's online on Rumble, the old archive sessions.
Yes. If you've got a few seconds spare to find out what it is about the second, then it's worth a second listening. I did quite well there, didn't I? You see what I did there? I did that. I just did that. Go. Yes, we can. Perhaps we can. Let's.
Perhaps we can go on to our next topic, our first topic, actually. That will be the legal status of Germany.
Yes, please. Let's go on to that.
Okay. Perhaps I should introduce the topic generally. The legal status of a country should be a real easy thing to talk about. There should be a country, there should be borders, there should be a constitution, there could be some laws, and there should be a high court. All these, let's say, quite simple tasks for a real country. In Germany, we have a slightly different situation, and meanwhile, since already decades, many countries in the European Union are in the same confusing state of legal issues. I would like to introduce you to the legal status of Germany, because I am German. So I know those things well. I know that I hope that there are some listeners still online from the Alex Jones show. Perhaps there is someone among them who might know something about France or Spain or Italy, because the legal situation there is a little bit different than in Germany. However, they have the same problem. The problem here is there is no country called Germany. When we take a look at the map of Europe, we see a very big portion of Central Europe, which is called Germany. But of course, Germany is not the real legal name. The legal name today would be Federal Republic of Germany. This is what they are telling you. And in 1990, the situation was slightly different. There we had two German countries. The one was called Federal Republic of Germany, and the other one, the eastern part, the so-called eastern part, was called German Democratic Republic. We all, the older among us, remember it very well. There was the so-called Iron Curtain, the border between Eastern Germany and Western Germany. The Soviet Union on the right side, on the eastern side, and the US biased bloc on the western side.
Yeah.
After the war in 1945, we had still the so-called Deutsches Reich, the German Empire, in the borders of 1973. 1937. Sorry, 1937, which included not only the western part, the Western Germany part, and the so-called Eastern German part, but also the part which is since then governed by Poland, which should be called Eastern Germany. The so-called Eastern German part, which we used to use the name for, the German Democratic Republic, was in that time called Middle Germany, because it was the center part of Germany.
Right.
So in 1948, the Federal Republic of Germany was created by the Western Bloc, and the German Democratic Republic was created by the Eastern Bloc. The German Democratic Republic got a constitution, and the Federal Republic of Germany got a basic law. In German, the word is Grundgesetz. The Grundgesetz, the basic law, is not called a constitution, and it is not a constitution, although many Germans still believe today that they have a constitution, and this constitution is called basic law. But when they would read this basic law in the last article, the article 146, this phrase is stated that this basic law loses its validation at the same moment when the German people will give themselves a constitution. So we have to ask ourselves this question, this is a rather simple question: why is the basic law not a constitution? Why is the basic law a basic law? Why is it called a basic law? This leads back to the Hager Landkriegsordnung. It's called the rules of war. I don't know the English term for this law. It was decided how to do war. May you shoot an enemy when he has no uniform, or if you don't wear a uniform, may you shoot a foreign soldier, and all these very simple situations of war were discussed within this law, and there was also a phrase: what do you do when you occupy a country, a foreign country? Then you have to take care for the people who live there, and you have to take care that law and order is kept up on a daily basis. And because the country is occupied, there is no constitution, so you have to give them a basic law. This is the reason why the German Grundgesetz, basic law, is called basic law, because Germany was and is an occupied country with a basic law. We don't have a constitution. And for the people who might now say, why Germany is not an occupied country anymore, please take a look at Germany. We have US American troops, we have British troops, we have French troops, and we have already some other troops there, or still some other troops there. So basically, Germany is an occupied country, and we are not sovereign. Some German politicians in the past spoke that out very clearly, that sovereignty was never a goal or a target idea for this Federal Republic of Germany. So, coming back to the real point, the legal situation of Germany. Of course, the creation of the Federal Republic of Germany on the western part of the German Empire, and the creation of the German Democratic Republic of Germany in the middle part of the German Empire, and the Polish government for the eastern part of Germany was legally correct. It is an occupied country. The Polish government got the duty to govern this eastern part for whatever time. The German Democratic Republic got their constitution, so they were a real country with a constitution, and this let's say provisional economical area of Federal Republic of Germany existed legally under this basic law, and everything was okay. Now in 1990 we had this so-called reunification of two German states, and everyone celebrated this as the final reunion of all Germans in one German country. By that, they forgot the eastern part. By that, they forgot that there might be some legal problems with the details in it. What they tried to sell us legally today is that on the 3rd of October in 1990, the day of this contract, the German Democratic Republic, a state with a constitution and a territory, joined the scope of application of the basic law of the Federal Republic of Germany on the basis of Article 23. This Article 23 in the German basic law used to state that this basic law is valid in German countries like Württemberg, Saxony, Lower Saxony, and Bavaria, etc. So they named the former western part of Germany where this basic law applies to, and the eastern part of Germany could join this scope of application of this basic law whenever they want to do so. And on this 3rd of October, this German Democratic Republic with a constitution and territory joined the scope of this Article 23. The problem is that this Article 23 was deleted from the German Basic Law 2 weeks before this 3rd October 1990. Now you may ask, that sounds a bit like a problem when an article is deleted and later it is used to let another country join this basic law, and how does this all fit together? When you do a simple research with Google for the Grundgesetz, for the basic law, and Article 23, you will find the old version before 1990, and you will find that it was deleted, or it was deleted. It is already difficult to find this word because it was exchanged to another article that has the same number but a completely different content to confuse the people reading it. The thing is that on the conference in Paris on the 17th of September in 1990, the foreign ministers of Russia and the United States and France and Britain met to discuss the situation and the future of Germany. And on this conference, James Baker, who was Foreign Minister of the United States and High Commissioner of the Expeditionary Supreme Headquarters of the Allied Forces of World War II, used his powers as being this High Commissioner to simply tell the German government that he hereby deletes Article 23 of the Basic Law. Nobody will tell you this in open public in Germany. Nobody will give you any access to any written source about this. However, in the German Basic Law, printed in 1990, you will find on the last pages the list of changes to the Basic Law. And there you will find that Article 23 was deleted on the 23rd September 1990. There's no reason written on these last pages. There's simply written it was deleted, nothing else. And 2 years later, the same Grundgesetz, the same Basic Law, printed 2 years later, doesn't mention the deletion, but mentions another Article 23, which talks about the United Nations, the European Union, and coming together, etc. So it's very confusing when we're talking about these legal details. But the simple fact is, the Article 23, on which the German Democratic Republic joined the Federal Republic of Germany on the 3rd of October 1990, wasn't there anymore. So this contract basically is not valid. The second point now even it's getting more confusing. On this same 17th of September in 1990, on the same conference in Paris, Eduard Shevardnadze, at that time foreign minister of the
I remember
Soviet
him.
Union,
Yeah.
He also, being a high commissioner of the Allied forces of World War II, and he used his power to take the printed original constitution of the German Democratic Republic. He stood up and ripped this piece of paper into two pieces. Thereby, the constitution of the German Democratic Republic was deleted. It was destroyed. So we have a situation where on the 17th of September 1990, a German Democratic Republic ceased to exist because the constitution was destroyed. On the same day, the Article 23 of the German Basic Law of the Federal Republic of Germany was deleted, which means the Basic Law doesn't apply to any area, because this article, where it was written, where it applies to, to which areas, was deleted. So something, the Federal Republic of Germany, which has the Basic Law which doesn't apply to any area, something which doesn't have an area, gave an article which was deleted to a country which doesn't exist anymore because the constitution was destroyed. And then 2 weeks later, they put all this together and do what? It's a situation of only thin air. Everything what is sold to us as history, as being a valid contract, is a lie. And when you're talking about this in Germany, you are called, of course, you are named very bad words like Schwurbler or Reichsbürger or whatever. or extreme far right-wing extremists, and you name it.
Very bad.
Nazi, of course. Yeah, very bad. But it's a very simple question, and everybody who is interested in this can do a simple Google research and will find the same what I just talked about. So we have a legal situation of Germany that the Federal Republic of Germany doesn't have an area of existence. The German Democratic Republic, which joined the Federal Republic of Germany, ceased to exist in 1990, and the still Polish governed area of former Eastern Germany are also not there. So when you take another deep look at the basic law, you will find another article. I think it was in Article 116, who is German? And there it is written, still now today, that German is whoever is born or has found shelter in the area of Germany in the borders of the 31st December of 1937. These are the borders of the German Empire. This is the definition of being German today. This includes the western part, middle part, and eastern part under Polish government. So basically, when we're talking about Germans, we are talking about 50% Polish people today. 50% of Poland is German. This is what is written in the German basic law today, which anyway doesn't apply to any area, but however, it's written there. So all these legal problems, which you are not allowed to pose any question in Germany, are there. They are easy to find. Everybody can read this for themselves, and we have to ask ourselves, what do we live in here today? Now, what is the problem with Germany? Maybe this may be the same the problem in France or Spain or Italy, because there's another point of importance. When we look back in history, when you look old videos, you will find that German police used to have green uniforms. That might
in the 1930s.
No, in the 1960s, 70s, 80s.
Right.
Just simply look back, they had green uniforms. Suddenly, shortly after 1990, they switched to black uniforms.
Okay.
Another question of color is, in the former years, before 1990, it is red. After 1990.
You kind of broke up there. What was red? You just broke up at that point. What was red?
The passport.
Right.
The German passport used to be green, and it is now red. The same applies to Italian passports, Spanish passports, and French passports. They are all red today. So what is the matter of importance here? Some people might think this is all simply a question of design. When you take a look at the uniforms, green uniforms mean this is terrestrial forces, that is like police or whatever land forces you have, it's green uniforms. When you're talking about black uniforms, you're talking about private entities.
Right.
So why
like mercenaries.
Why does the police now in Germany has black uniforms since then? When you're talking about passport colors, I learned that whenever you have a red passport, you have a passport of a private entity, of a company. Whenever you have a green passport or a provisional country, whenever you have a green passport, you have a country, a real country, but it is not sovereign. And whenever you have a black passport, you have a passport of a sovereign country. So now take a look at the passport colors worldwide, and you will find lots of red passports everywhere.
How about
so
blue?
Maybe
sorry, ours in the United States is a dark blue. Is that any? Is
I,
it
I,
significant?
I am not a professional within these color questions. I
Sure,
only
I
know
know
what
that
I just.
Russia
Yeah,
has red. Russia has a red passport currently.
yeah.
I think it's
Like you
probably
mentioned.
very important. I know that when we joined the European Union, the passports here changed. They became red. However, after the glorious Brexit of 2016, is it, whenever it was, they became black. And I have now got a black passport. This is because they used to be black prior to the European Union debacle. And now they're back to being black. And at the time, we were told over here it's because so many British people wanted them to be black. Well, me being an obstreperous British type, I wanted it to be black too, without fully knowing exactly what it means. Maybe it means that the passport is controlled by a private force. But then I've kind of thought that about most of the nation anyway. For most of its history, it just masquerades as a government, and it really is a private force in many ways. So what color passports do you? What color passport do you have right now? Then?
You mean me?
Thomas.
Yes, I mean you personally. Yeah.
It's a German passport. It's red.
Okay.
Wow. So I have a question for you, Thomas.
Another. Yeah.
Go. I just wanted to mention that the Supreme Soviet, they disbanded and they abolished themselves in 1991, and I think it was December. Now, what is the significance of that with Germany melding together into this, constitutionalist conglomerate?
Well, I come to this just in a second. I would love to add something about the passports. When you take a look at your passport, it's also of importance how your name is written. If your name is written in capital letters only, that it's different. It makes a difference to those passports where the name is written with capital starting letters and then in small letters for the rest of the name. For example, the Swiss passports, I've looked at them. They start with a capital letter for the first letter in your name and then go on in small letters. The legal principle behind this is an old legal Roman principle called capitis diminutio maxima. That means when you write your name in only small letters, only, you are a human being with full rights. When you start writing your name with a capital letter and then go on in small letters, you have not every rights of a human. You are not fully enrighted, but you have given up some rights. For example, you are a citizen of a country, and therefore you have to pay taxes. So you gave away some of your freedoms. When you write your name in capital letters only, you are not a human being, but you are a company.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
So when you now,
all caps.
when you now take a look at your passport, Paul, how is the black British passport now? Is your name written in capital letters only or in small letters?
I could go and grab it. It's about 10 yards away. I think I know where it is. I've just moved it off of this desk about a week ago in a great tidy up. Carry on talking. I'll be back in half a minute.
Okay. So now we could come back to the Russian situation. The Russians basically offered in 1989 to the German government to give back every occupied German area to the German government without any condition. So we are talking about East Prussia, that is now Kaliningrad, formerly named Königsberg. And they wanted to give everything back to Germany, also the Polish governed part, the eastern part of Germany, to the Germans. And the former government, ruled by Helmut Kohl at that time as the Chancellor of Germany, denied that. They told the Russians, no, we don't want that. Of course, they didn't ask the Germans. They simply said that. And the Russians didn't understand that. And the Russians then began to discuss with the German government what to do with Germany and how to leave the German Democratic Republic. There were a lot of Soviet soldiers stationed there in the German Democratic Republic, and when they all had to go back to the Soviet Union, there was a foreseeable problem with jobs and how to earn money, where to live, where's the houses, how to buy food, etc. So there was a German lawyer in southern Germany who got the order to go to Moscow and discuss with the Russian government the contract of this pulling back the Russian forces from Eastern Germany. He got back after several weeks or even months of discussion and had a very, very long and detailed contract, which he gave then to Helmut Kohl, that time German Chancellor, and said, here, this is the contract. We decided that it would be good that the German government should pay 8.5 billion mark to the Soviet Union to ensure that apartments will be built, that there will be jobs for the returning officers, etc., etc. Helmut Kohl took this contract and said, well, thank you. From here on, I take over. And then the lawyer was sent back to his office in southern Germany and did nothing and heard nothing. And several weeks later, Helmut Kohl came back from Moscow, where he met with Gorbachev, with a stack of paper, and gave this to his lawyer and said, "Okay, now we are ready. Please make everything ready for signature." And the lawyer took a look at this contract and told Mr. Kohl, hey, "This is not my contract." "Yes, that's right," he got as an answer. So within this new contract, suddenly the number changed from 8.5 billion to 85 billion, which should be paid. And the outcome of this situation was the 85 billion were taken from the German pension funds, which at that time used to have a buffer zone of let's say 1.5 years. Even if there would be no tax money at all, the German pensions would still have been paid for 1.5 years without any tax being paid by the people. Now this zone of paying, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks at the moment. So the pension funds of Germany were plundered, basically. They were completely robbed and ripped off of every capital there. These 85 billions were paid on Swiss accounts, and from these Swiss accounts, 8.5 billion, the original amount from the old contract, were sent to the Soviet Union. The rest of the money disappeared. At the same time, Helmut Kohl got a contract as being a very nicely paid external consultant to the Credit Suisse, the Swiss bank where the money was paid to. And at the same time, Gorbachev bought his first castle in St. Petersburg. I don't know what else they bought, and I have no idea where the money went to. And I don't know if they both have taken 40 billion each. No idea. The simple fact is the money is gone, and I have no idea where.
Great reset.
Great reset, yeah. At the same time, in the same time frame, starting in 1984, another very interesting situation happened. As you may remember, the Eastern German Railway and the German Democratic Republic was called Reichsbahn. Reichsbahn, the Empire train or Empire Railway, translated, is the original company from the German Empire. This is the only state-owned company which did not die in 1945, but which was still kept alive and used to serve as the railway company of German Democratic Republic. In the Federal Republic of Germany, we had the Deutsche Bundesbahn. So a complete new company, new trains, new structures, etc. The members and the employees of the German Reichsbahn didn't have passports of the German Democratic Republic, and they didn't have passports of the Federal Republic of Germany. They only had the so-called Dienstausweis, that is an employee's passport of this German Empire Railway Company. So they were not members of the German Democratic Republic, that they were simply employees of the German Reichsbahn. Okay. The head of the how do you call it? The union of this company was Wolfgang Gerhard Günther Ebel at that time, and he wondered why he didn't have that East German passport, and why he had certain rights and special duties, and why he could enter West Berlin without any problem at any time. And then he found out the legal situation of Eastern Germany, the legal situation of Western Germany, and also the legal situation of the German Empire. And he found out, and he read, that whatever the German Empire might want to do legally had to be done within a certain time frame of 40 years. And those 40 years expired 40 years after 1945, that is in 1985. So in 1984, he got to know this, he learned about this, and he said, well, we must do something. He was a German, he felt German, and he had no idea what to do, basically, but he was very, very brave, and he went to the American embassy in Berlin and told them, according to the international law, the German country, the German Empire, has to act legally to ensure that Germany somehow exists in the future, and therefore I want to claim that I want to be the one who now finally claims here something for the German Empire. He expected to be arrested once, but he wasn't arrested. In fact, he was invited to Washington, and he was made the provisional German Reichskanzler at that time by the Americans. Nobody talked about that at that time, of course. This was top secret. He had his office in West Berlin in the shadow of the walls. These words are very important for a later point of time. Just near the Berlin Wall, he has a very small office. I visited him at that time in that office, and I talked to him. It was a very nice man, very interesting man to talk to. And in 1987, he held an official and public speech in front of the Berlin Reichstag, the government building in Berlin, with the press being on site, where he told the world about the legal status of Federal Republic of Germany and German Democratic Republic of Germany, and that we would have a reunification and a destruction of the wall in less than 7 trimesters. That would be in 1990. Of course, nobody in the German mainstream press talked about this speech, and it was mentioned nowhere. But fact is, I think it was several months later, Ronald Reagan visited Berlin and held his speech there on the, I think it was in front of the Brandenburger Tor, and mentioned that there was hope to see in Berlin, in the shadows of the wall, nobody knew at that time what he was talking about exactly in detail. He mentioned this small office, this man, because the American government under Ronald Reagan and also the Soviet government, they both wanted to have a real united Germany, a strong force in Central Europe to be in the middle of the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. They wanted this Germany to be neutral and strong and powerful. But what happened later, we all know, is that this contract of reunification was signed, and the two German states were joined together in a situation of mostly thin air, and also the American foreign minister and also the Soviet foreign minister made everything to ensure that both the Federal Republic of Germany and the German Democratic Republic cannot exist anymore. But it still exists today. So we have to, again, ask ourselves some questions. What happened that the powerful American government and the powerful Soviet government didn't get through with their plans, and somehow this Germany of thin air still exists under an acting government which does everything to ruin the German people down to the roots.
Yes. I'm back, by the way. I caught most of what you were saying. I was just looking for my passport. I've been looking for my passport. And how
is the name written then?
I've cancelled my holiday because I can't find the passport. So I'm going nowhere. This is what comes when you tidy things up. I suspect it's all in caps, but because I don't have it in my hand, I can't confirm it. They've always used to be all in caps. I just think the colour had changed, but I can't confirm either way. So if anybody's got a black passport, which are the new ones since 2018, I think it took them a couple of years to sort things out. Please let us know if you can grab a hold of one. As it is, I'm here in Britain forever. No, I'll find the damn thing somewhere. Also, Mr. Anderson, a question for you here from Exo, who asks if you think that the Western intelligence mob engineered the fall of the Berlin Wall to bring about this situation, or do you think it was just a naturally occurring event, whatever we might mean by the word natural? Which sounds wholly unnatural the way you're describing it. Yeah.
The older ones among the listeners may remember very well the demonstrations of the people in Germany. They yes. shouted, "We are the people. Wir sind das Volk." We all saw it on television. There were demonstrations with hundreds of thousands of people, and it looked very natural, and we all thought it was natural. But we were fooled. Definitely fooled, because this former Gerhard Günther Ebel, the former provisional Reichskanzler, held his public speech in 1987, claiming that in 1990 we will have the fall of the Berlin Wall. He predicted it. He said it before it would happen, and everything what was told to us on television, on radio, in 1990 about the spontaneous demonstrations of hundreds of thousands of people in the German Democratic Republic is nonsense. It's the same color revolution which we can see after that in other countries, where the people, hundreds of thousands, are somehow spontaneously carried in hundreds of buses to the capital city to demonstrate there. And astonishingly, the police does nothing against them. And the same surprises we have in 1990, the so-called fall of the Berlin Wall, and the surprising open of the borders of the German Democratic Republic, where somehow accidentally, nobody knows exactly why, some officer came to the idea to open the borders, just like that. Where they formerly used to shoot every single person who even dared to set a foot over this border.
What's the deal with that? Yeah, I remember David Hasselhoff, you know, at that event when they were all doing that, and it just gloating over the fact that it's over, no more wall, tear down the wall. And we had Ronald Reagan, the famous speech, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And then it happens. I mean,
are you suggesting political theatre? Is that what you're implying?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I was looking at my passport. My name is all caps in it, and I also have a Russian visa, and both the English and the Cyrillic is in all caps.
So all caps, doesn't that indicate a corporation, like the straw man thing?
Yeah.
That your the legal fiction that they've embossed upon your forehead or wherever maybe your backside or something in their system. Yes, that would.
And another interesting, just a second, another interesting thing about your passport is, please try to find out where this small chip is built in your passport.
Oh, I find that every time. I break mine. I broke mine. I get hold of my nail and I crack it every time I get a passport.
Okay,
I just crack them because I want to cause trouble if I ever go anywhere. But I've got no desire to go anywhere because I'm a parochial Englishman now. I'm doomed. I'm just going to stay here.
So tell us, where was the chip?
I think it used to be on the back page. Let me just have a look at the latest one here. It used to be on the back page, somewhere underneath or very near the photograph that they used to put on the inside back cover of the thing. It's somewhere on the covers. Inside.
In the German passports, is exactly on the throat on your picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is where the frequencies come in. And when you now read a little bit about things like voodoo and other stuff, where you can do things with some small pictures or straw things with the people, why this chip is exactly on above of your throat.
So when you do the voodoo that you do so good, that's what you're saying, right? That would make sense. It's all, there seems to be these occult principles that are embedded into all these. The whole bewilderment, of course, with, what is it? It's the Chicago style book, isn't it, that determines things like, you have your name. I think you're supposed to write your name all in lowercase, supposed. I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm only partially educated on this because it drives me crazy, all this stuff, for the simple reason that I don't know whether I want to devote a considerable amount of my time understanding a scam that I'm not interested in the first place, but maybe I ought to. I think the view of people that do that is that somehow you can get yourself out of it. But I tend to view, it may be possible, maybe a few rare individuals have got the stamina to actually sort of pound away at this thing. But I'm always, in my own thinking, I keep feeling that, well, they're basically doing this so they don't have to apply direct force. If you get close enough to them, they will apply direct force. History seems to be littered with that. But a question for you, Mr. Anderson, is, so, are you actually a German then?
Well, I was born in the area of the German Empire, therefore I am a German by definition. I am also, unfortunately, still a citizen of this of this Federal Republic of Germany, the so-called country which doesn't have an area of application. So I am both a citizen of the area formerly known as the German Empire and also a citizen of the Federal Republic of Germany, which is a matter of paper only.
Right. The question here, Mr. Anderson. Thomas, what is the nationality on your passport? I think it says German. The US passport says United States of America, all in caps. What does it say on yours?
Yeah,
have you lost yours too?
No, you're right. This is another very interesting thing. The nationality is really written, there is the word German. Well, German is not a country. And as you say, very right, in all the other passports, the nationality, the question upon the nationality needs an answer like Great Republic of France or Republic of Spain or United Kingdom, whatever. but not Spanish or Italian. This is not a nationality.
No. Well, it's certainly not a space. It's certainly not an area of territory named after the tribe that has settled it and turned it into a nation. So you don't have a nation listed on your passport. It's not on there.
And even more interesting is that Wolfgang Schäuble, at that time, 1990s, he was finance minister of Germany. He, by the way, also said that sovereignty was never a goal, an aim for the government, and was never planned. He applied to the United Nations and he enlisted the country of the Federal Republic of Germany, not under the German name, that is Bundesrepublik Deutschland, but under the simple word Germany.
Right.
So this is another legal issue. He cannot simply he cannot enlist a country under a name which is not even a country. Germany
so are you saying that no one's been to Germany for a long time because it doesn't exist?
Well, they can go to Germany, to an area which they call Germany. But when you're talking about a legal issue, a legal matter of law and a matter of contracts, the so-called state Germany cannot underwrite any contract. There has to be a legal form. And the legal form used to be Federal Republic of Germany or German Democratic Republic. They had the legal status of being able to sign something. But Germany is not and has never been a country. German Empire, yes, could be, or kingdom or Kaiserreich. Everything was legal.
If we go back to the 19th century, is this when the word Germany was first applied to this part of the world? Of course, we don't know precisely what part we're talking about. We've got a rough idea, but not a precise idea. When did the word Germany come into common? Because obviously we're familiar with things like, as you were saying, Bavaria, Saxony, etc., Prussia. And yet these things came together at a certain time. So I'm just wondering when the word Germany was actually used. Apparently, we fought the Germans in 1914, or there was a World War I, and Germany, or the nation state, participated in that pointless exercise, as did everybody else.
Astonishing.
Yeah.
Astonishingly, in 1871, this is the last year that I know of that the German Empire has a correct legal status, and also the United States of America, because in 1871 it started to become a company. So that in America we have the same problem. The United States of America, all written in all capital letters, is a different thing than the United States of America starting with the capital letter and then being written in small letters. The second one is a republic. The first one is a company. Of course, it sounds very, very similar.
Does it?
But when we are talking about law and legal things, we have to take care of these such small details, like capital letters and small letters. Like is there a period, a comma, or?
I want to mention, as a Catholic, I know that the Papal States were out of existence by 1870. More, and then became Vatican City State. Just a little tidbit of info, because
it's as if these are the early groundworks, the foundational groundworks for the situation, obviously, that we find ourselves in today. Globalism / corporatism. Another question. You mentioned this maybe on a previous show, or maybe in a private conversation that we've had, about that particular area of the world that we're going to call Germany being like an epicenter throughout history of trade. And I've always had in my mind that, one of the challenges for the German people here in England or Britain, we're surrounded by water, so we've been left alone to stew in our own juices and do all sorts of things. But you guys over there, and gals, you've continually been in the process of either defining, redefining, or readjusting whatever you think your borders are. You're surrounded by really oceans of other at times, possibly, and history would show this, hostile other tribes that have wanted to move in and acquire what your hard work has produced. I mean, this, I'm not speaking out of line with that. It does feel that that is the case. Certainly, the people of Britain have always had a really healthy respect for German engineering, etc. I know these are the cliches, but it's true.
Well known all throughout the world.
Absolutely. It's just true. And we like that sort of thing. But I think historically, I mean, you must have, it's almost as if you're fighting permanent border wars right up to now with this paperwork situation. Anyway, you can answer that after the break, because that's the wind down music. You've been listening to Paul English Live here on WBN for the last couple of hours, and we've been talking about the actual status of Germany. We're going to carry on talking about that after the break over on Rumble. We'll also be continuing on Radio Soapbox for another hour. We will end definitely on the hour, 11 p.m. here in the UK, 6 p.m. US Eastern. Our guest has been Mr. Thomas Anderson, and hopefully he's going to hang around. He needs to, because we're going to play his song that's coming up straight out of this break, and then we will resume the conversation, everybody. So if you need to get yourself a glass of schnapps or go and check your own passport, now's a good time to do that sort of thing. We'll be back after this little lot. Well, that was Root Beer Rag by the Wise Guys. Where on earth did you get that from, Mr. Anderson? That's marvelous.
I once visited a concert. Yeah. It's absolutely fabulous. It always leaves me speechless with an open mouth, because they speak so fast. and they sing so fast. It's very, very fun to see them singing this song, and also the other songs. I like them very much.
Yes, Exo writes Beach Boys before LSD, and it's quite. Then he says, my LSD references always fall flat here. Well, not that one. That one really went home. Thanks for that one. I love that. That goes down as possibly one of the most interesting songs any guest has ever contributed here. Not that we allowed them to contribute too much. Actually, that's not true. When we have them, we do. But I liked that a lot. That was a very wise choice by the wise guys. Like that a lot. Anyway, where were we? They sounded as though they were as... That was the sound of my confusion, actually. That really expressed my confusion as well. Can I just ask you a question about the A status that I've read with regards to Germany? That it is, in fact, how do you say it in German? An AG, an AG, as we would say, a limited company or a corporation, and that there is paperwork filed to that effect. We certainly have information regarding all of the so-called power centres over here, governments, police, and etc., as being basically limited companies or corporations. And is that something that's applicable, do you think, to Germany?
Yeah, we used to have official offices in Germany up to the year 1990. We had a so-called Arbeitsamt, and Amt means an official office, an office for work, office for postal services, an office for whatever you can think of. And after 1990, it very fast came to the point that all those offices stopped to exist and then were renamed into agencies. Now we have a job agency, we have all kinds of other agencies. So the official status is gone. They are all only companies anymore. And every company and every agency, the job agency and all the others, finance agency, and also the Bundeskanzler, the Chancellor of Germany, as being an economical entity, is enlisted in the United States in Delaware, has this UAN number, I think it is called, which every company must have. And so whatever federal entity there is in the Federal Republic of Germany, they are all enlisted as company in Delaware in the United States.
Nice. I'm reassured and happy for you. I'm sure it's a good arrangement, and it's all done in best honourable intentions, even though you didn't know about that. Yeah.
That's Biden's home state, by the way, Delaware.
Yeah. But Delaware is set up as a place specifically for a lot of corporation formations, isn't it?
Typically, yes. They do it for tax reasons. That's at least what I've heard.
That's the cover story. They probably do it for other reasons as well. No doubt that they're all true. So, how are you going to reform Germany then, Mr. Anderson?
Well,
what can we do to help? What can we do to help? We'd like to help. It's so much trouble between the two countries during the last century. All of it really not wanted by any of the people on the ground. That's my considered opinion. But much of it, all of it wanted by our unwanted and unwarranted rulers, bringing about this state of turmoil in the last century particularly, for, when thoroughly examined, totally groundless reasons other than greed, the lust for power, and making sure that the other guy didn't get it. How are we to help you? How are we to, because the other role that you've been given, it seems to me, or that your undefined, borderless, paperless so-called nation called Germany has been given, is that, and this has been a thing within the media for years over here, Germany's rolled out in the media to suit whatever purposes are required and demanded by the narrative at that time. So if you are to be the dominant power of Europe, you will be portrayed as that, and this is a bad thing. If they want to portray you as the industrial powerhouse of Europe because this is good for markets, you'll be portrayed as that. How do you see it going forward? I think this is why the whole thing has been placed upon you in terms of the centre of the European Union, which, of course, is darkly, deeply and sickly ironic in the sense that the word union, in my mind, is really associated with communism and globalism, and yet the history of the conflict, the big one in the middle of the first third of the last century, that massive war that started in 1914 and ended in 1945 with a big long half time period in the middle, which was just as ruinous for your country in many ways. Your country was fighting against that, and yet they've burdened you, it seems to me, maybe burden's the wrong way, but they've had their cheeky little joke and placed you at the centre of the European Communist Union, because that's all we can really say that it is. Are there, and I know obviously, like we've mentioned before, anybody over there and even over here that expresses any desire for the restoration of their nations, and I'm one of those people, were obviously Nazis. I mean, I'm not a real one because I'm not a German, but you really could be one if you wanted to be. Couldn't you? I'm not asking you to be one. I view that they all disappeared in 1945. Of course, that's a bit of a stretch because they didn't all die at that. But in terms of it being, an edifice of power, apparently that came to an end in 1945. But
I've been learning some interesting things about the prehistory to the rise of the Third Reich in the Pan-Germanic movement of I think his name was George von Schoenberg or Schonerer. I don't know how to say that exactly, but and then also I'm itching to ask you this question, Thomas. Have you heard of Karl Lueger of the
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
from Vienna.
What do you know from Vienna? Yeah, that was a very popular movement up until 1910 when he died, and he was considered one of Adolf Hitler's main. He looked up to him very much, and probably the fact that his party, I think in the 1870s or 1880s, was called the Anti-Semitic Party. And it involved the Pan-Germanic movement, but also a lot of Catholics, because Karl Lueger was also a Catholic at that point, up until his death. And he was part of the Christian Socialists, which to me, hearing it now, it seems like a contradiction because the church is against socialism and all this. But at the time, he was seen as a hero to the people, and Austria, particularly Vienna, tripled in size by the time of his death from the time he started. So, what could you tell us about him?
Unfortunately, not much. Basically,
yeah.
you repeated everything
right.
I know.
Yeah, I know. I
think,
can find very little.
I think I have some books about him, but I think I may have read them, but I don't recall it now. A lot of people in that time in Germany had certain and different ideas about the future of Germany, and we talked about already that in 1871 the last really legal basic situation was left for the and the United States, that everything is a company, not a state.
Right. Yeah, we had the Civil War. That was the biggest war we had here. It was 1 million people died or more, and the South lost and the North won. Abraham Lincoln and the Republicans.
I don't remember it right when the last German Kaiser signed his stepping down signature there, but I remember that signing this document with a wrong form of his name made this document illegal. So basically, Germany, the area called Germany, has never left the legal status of being a Kaiserreich, an empire with a Kaiser top. And everything since then is not legally correct and should be reversed. And I know that in the background, behind the curtain, there are people who are working on this. I also heard that basically the future of Europe has long been decided 2 or 3 years ago in a secret, in several secret meetings which lasted over many months in a closed hotel in Moscow, where they all met, the Americans, the Russians, the French, the British, the Germans, but not the governments, but the real important people. And they decided how to go on in Europe with the political situation and with the borders. What I heard there is that the borders will be reshaped, and what we know as Federal Republic of Germany will cease to exist, and that there will be huge changes to Europe within a very foreseeable future, and not many years, but less than 10. And what we see now in the actual political theater, which we call reality, is really only theater to somehow create a storyline which the general public can hopefully follow. So we are talking about big geopolitical changes, changing of borders. And when we talk about such changes, normally there should be a war, which might then help the people to accept these huge changes of borders. Because without a war, which then, of course, attacks several countries, which after that might change their borderlines,
Like
without
Ukraine.
a war, the people won't accept and won't believe what is happening there. So I think that we are facing this situation in a short future. And a war is, of course, always, it comes always together with a risk for life and loss and destruction. But it seems to be already decided, as far as I'm informed. And
Do you think these
unfortunately,
people deciding it are good guys or bad guys?
actually, I think it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think if those people have decided it, I think it will happen. Because when I look back in history, what seems to be a political movement has in fact always been a decision of some people behind the curtain. And what seems to be a spontaneous wave of demonstrations of the people, for example, Wir sind das Volk, we are the people in former Eastern Germany, is not at all a spontaneous movement, but it's very well planned, far in advance.
Like,
so,
I'll give you an example, Thomas. Like in Canada, we had the COVID restrictions where they started enforcing a vaccine passport to get in and out of Canada. And they protest to the point where they had to come up with this Ukrainian-Russian war in order to distract people from the protest of it. Now, I would consider that something that was planned to happen because they could have easily just stopped it and said, okay, we're done with the COVID restrictions. But that brought it to that point. It's like they almost wanted it to happen. Because that's something you could easily foresee. Well, you got to get jabbed in order to cross a border. That's like a point that you draw a line at because of the fact that the jabs, can cause death. At least in the minds of most common people that see it as something that you're forcing us to take this medicine that we don't want, and you're sticking it in our arms in the form of a needle. That's got a very traumatic. It's just a very traumatic thing if you think about it.
Yeah, that comes together with the experience that many of us have made. There are people who got the vaccination not because they wanted to protect themselves against a possible infection, but simply to get their freedom, to go to the cinema, to go to the restaurant.
Pragmatism.
Yeah.
Well, the people still making extremely poor decisions based on their requirement to go on holiday, their requirement to, pass certain standards for boosters and this, that, and the other. It's as if some people, it appears, are unreachable with the truth. Maybe because they're not really looking for it, or they're just very happy with their lot up to a point. I mean, all of us can be talked in and out of all sorts of ludicrous positions if we allow ourselves to get sucked into company that can work on you. It's extremely subtle. And what you were saying there, Thomas, about all of these events being planned, much as it kind of discourages me, and it always has, to sort of look at that, it's hard to come up with a sort of viewpoint that goes against that. When we started this show over a year ago, or certainly the first 3 or 4 months, one of the topics I was looking at was the French Revolution. I was basically looking at the book by Nestor Webster, which I would still remind everybody, if you haven't read it, it's definitely worth your while. And the French Revolution is almost like a blueprint for many of the others. Of course, it's running slightly after the American Revolution, when the Brits were soundly kicked out, or were they? Because who are the Brits? Certainly not the people of the nations. It's these corporations of the City of London, and it's not
Rothschild type.
Yeah, it's the corporation types. We call it globalism now, but as your books no doubt cover in great detail, and many books available over here, this is an arrangement of long standing, thousands of years old, that there's always been power groups muscling continually to extend their dominion and control over the plebs, as they would see us. And it's unlikely that we would ever be able to persuade them to change their behavior. It seems to me, we're not going to be able to do that. So when these decisions are made at a high level, the main problem, or one of them, is that so many people are in an unconscious state compliant with it. Maybe there's never, ever been a natural revolution. Certainly people used to think that the French one was, but if you read Webster's book, and this will be applicable to all of them, it's simply not true. It's simply not the case that the peasants rose up and wanted to get rid of all the middle class. They weren't looking to do anything of the sort. It was a very harmonious nation until someone decided it wasn't going to be one anymore.
And it affected America, too, because we were ruled by the French monarch. The Bourbon monarch, the white, his banner was white, the white supremacy here in America.
Yeah.
Was the Bourbons.
And it's all intertwined, it's all connected. All of these revolutions have been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, I've mentioned it before. There's a book called The Nameless War by Archibald Maule Ramsey, or booklet. It's about 115 pages long, and I'm mentioning it here again for those who haven't read it or are not aware of it. The Nameless War, you'll probably find it in a free PDF, you might as well get it now before they get rid of it. And he opens up with the so-called English Civil War. Yet again, it was arranged by other forces. Nearly always the force involved is the force of finance and financial dominion. In fact, it's always that, as far as certainly over the last 500 or 600 years, and no doubt in prior times, battles ensued because people wanted somebody else's stuff, or they didn't want them to get powerful enough to come and seize their stuff. There's a permanent paranoia within leadership circles about these sorts of things. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this here the other week. I've just finished reading the Goebbels book, by the way, by David Irving. I know I'd mentioned it to you, Thomas, in passing, and I've also mentioned it to Patrick just outside of the show. And again, I'm going to recommend it to you if you are a reader. And if you're not a reader, I would strongly urge you to become one, because it's probably the best hours you can spend, I think, under your own steam, driving your mind through certain things. The Goebbels book was truly a surprise to me. I've not read a book like it ever, I don't think, and that's a big thing to say, not because of what's in it, but because of how it's put together. I've mentioned David Irving, the man who wrote it and writes it quite brilliantly, was able to do so because he's the only person I'm aware of, I mean, maybe there's more since then, who found and then read the 75,000 pages of Goebbels' diary.
And he knew German.
He knew German.
Yeah.
And he knew German. In fact, I was watching an interview with him the other day. First 5 minutes. I've got it somewhere to watch. I downloaded it to keep it, actually. Someone put a clip up in the Telegram group for this show. So whoever it was, thank you very much for that. I'd not seen this before. He did a lengthy recording about his life about 2010, 2012, when he was fully lucid and with it. He's obviously an unwell chap now. But he was talking about when he came to Germany to work in the steelworks. And he applied to Krupp's, the great war manufacturer, and they turned him down. He's talking about this. He was a bit cross, I think. He ended up going to another armaments. I can't remember the name of the other company, but they did take him on. And he said the first year or 18 months there was the loneliest time of his life. And it really came across. He said, you're in a foreign country. You do speak the language you're getting by. He went there to really learn the language in an intimate way. And so he's in a very unique position. I think there's a comment as well made by Mr. Hitler at one point that he said something along the lines of maybe it would take a British historian to come along and write the true story of this. How prescient was that? Because that's really what he did. But it is an astonishing book. It really is quite a thing, particularly I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but the physical condition of Mr. Hitler after the attempt on his life in 1944, July 44, he was never the same man after that. This comes across quite clearly in Goebbels' diaries, that he'd lost more than half a step after that. It's not surprising, really. I think he was shaking for 10 days afterwards. Several people got killed in that. And what came out, again, about this sort of pre-planned thing is that the leadership of that nation at that time was not unified. And there was a lot of internal wars. And just as there are all the time in all of these things, these are an internal warring sorts of structures. And no doubt that's what's going on as well right now with all this sort of toing and froing, including possibly, Thomas, this meeting that you just mentioned in Moscow a few years back where they've decided to plan everything out. I mean, I could sort of pointlessly say, well, we weren't invited, so it doesn't count. But historically, what counts is force, and they will apply
I'd love to know
it.
the hotel name.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'd love to know the name of the hotel in Moscow.
We could go there for a holiday, couldn't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I can't. I haven't got a passport. But if I had a passport, I might want to go there. Well, I'll find it somewhere in that great...
I'll have to renew mine sooner or later here.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, quite. And while I'm just talking about Mr. Irving briefly, because I'd like to, there was an article recently by Henry Macau, or Henry Macau, I call him Henry Macau anyway, called, this was October the 17th, The Crucifixion of David Irving. I disagree with half of what he says in this article, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'd recommend it for you. You'll find it at henrymacau.com if you want to go and read these things. He puts some good stuff together. I'll take truth wherever I can find it, and it's down to you and all of us as readers to make our own discernment as we go through things and compile things. But there's a wonderful line here. He says, whether you agree with him or not, David Irving is a prodigy. His memory is encyclopedic. It really is. Apparently when they locked him up in Austria, he wrote a book in his head. He wrote the whole book in his head. He was in solitary confinement in a room 6 foot by 6 foot for I don't know how long, 18 months or something. And he wrote a book there. It's quite an amazing, prolific skill that he's got, because the books, if you've seen them, are huge. And I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, even though I was aware of this topic, I was never really attracted to reading them. And in a way, I don't mind, because they've been quite a revelation to me now. To people who've been reading his stuff for years, it'll sound pathetic. They go, well, you should have been reading that stuff a long time ago. But it's different. It's not quite what I expected. And I think it's the relentless reference to source material that builds up a more human picture of how human beings are really operating under stress and pressure. I mean, basically, the whole of Goebbels' diaries are basically everybody on all sides in that conflict, lying their asses off about everything all the time for propaganda and morale boosting or morale reducing, i.e. toward the enemy purposes. Understandable, but it seems to me, we mentioned it here before, those techniques have been applied to all of us in civilian times, certainly after World War One. I know over here, many of the things they've learnt to coerce, cajole, threaten, and deceive people have been harnessed and brought into civilian life, courtesy of the advertising industry and so on and so forth. All of these things to keep us lot in check, because we're an unruly bunch. Yes.
When can we get your book? When can we get that audio book?
What, the one of Admiral Dombey?
That you read for David Irving.
Where can you get
audio
it?
Book? Where? It's already available, huh?
Yes. Yes, it is. Sorry, that was the one I did a few months back. Is Nuremberg, the final battle, which is also it's also amazing. The Goebbels one is so personal because of all these. I mean, I've got to say, his wife Magda at the end. It's just I can't describe it. You have to read it. It's why I don't know whether an audiobook of that book would necessarily work. It's such a huge book in many ways. 570 pages or something is the main narrative. There's such a huge array of characters all the way through it. And it's effectively 20 years of his diary from the mid-20s through to obviously the mid-40s when he departed. And his attitude and the way some of the things he did are quite amazing. Others are appalling. He really was a dark person in many ways. And yet his passion in other ways is exemplary. It's, no one is kind of ticking all the boxes. It's such an intimate understanding of those personalities. It really is. It's obviously, you could say it's like a Greek tragedy, but it's a German tragedy and it's a world tragedy, as we all know, so many ways, right up to really the content of this show, with the fact that Germany has never been allowed to be itself since 1945, which is really, Thomas, in part, I think, what you're addressing here in this show.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in one of the earlier sessions. The reason why it seems to be that in modern history, it's always about Germans and other people. And today, what we see now is, we also talked about this in private conversations, that we seem to face a worldwide fight against the whites. When you take such words and tell them in public, most of the people turn away from you and say he's a ridiculous person. He's talking about a worldwide fight to exterminate all the white people. That really sounds unprofessional, even for myself. But
Yes.
what I learned in the last years, and what we see now in the politics in the United States, in Germany, is exactly this. The whites are get smaller by day in number. Their rights are reduced to the max, and whoever wants to be here is paid to be here and gets everything, and who is here and who was born here gets less and less and has to pay more and more.
It's exactly the same here. It's probably the same in France. It's probably the same in Holland. It's probably the same now in all of the European nations, if they can be called that. Maybe the Italians and us are also about to find out that we're in a parallel type of situation to Germany, that we've all been, denuded of our territories on paper.
Yeah, but not only Europe. It's also the United States. Take a look at them. Take a look at San Francisco or Los Angeles 20 years ago. That used to be very modern, very clean, and very nice cities. When you go there today, you will find open fires on every street, some small tents on every street, some white people living there, because they lost nearly everything. And it's not very nice anymore. It's not safe anymore. It's not calm anymore. It's simply dirty and ugly, and it's going down day by day.
I know. It's interesting you bring this up, because I was looking at some things I'd written in other Telegram groups about a year ago, and I wanted to this is an appropriate point to maybe mention them. I was in an exchange with some English people regarding who is English. It's a topic I haven't mentioned recently, but regular listeners know I keep coming back to this, or who is a German. And during part of the exchange, I gave my definition of a nation, which it's not mine. It's just the standard one, which is, a tribe of people of the same race with a shared and received history, culture, and language. And somebody wrote to me or responded and said, says who? They quoted what I said. It says who? And my response was, well, the dictionary says this. So I use a Chambers dictionary, but you'll find the older dictionaries, I've mentioned this before, are better because they're accurate. It's before the manglement of words, coming back to where we started off about an hour and a half ago, Thomas, before the full Marxist manglement of words had begun. And you have to really get to grips with these things. So I want to use words accurately. Otherwise, it's not possible to discuss any points, as self-evident, really. And I was just I was very civil with this stuff. There's no point not being, because you just need to do that. And a couple of people later on wrote some things down. I want to read you just this brief one. Because I was talking about who qualifies to be English, and someone had written, what about fifth-generation immigrants who consider themselves English? They have no other home and no other memories or experiences. I think it would be cruel to send them to a place they do not know and cannot identify with. What about vast numbers of mixed heritage children? Easy categories aren't possible anymore. Well, they are for me. And another comment was, if I can just find it as another one, which of course I can't, but I just wanted to make that point. I was talking with someone the other day. If you're with polite company in Germany, or I'm with polite company in England, is it possible to bring this topic up without people wanting to jump on your head? It's so delicate a thing because people react emotionally so badly, and they've been conditioned in error, in my view, to consider there's this thing called the human race. And the reason why I think it's in error is it does a disservice to everyone. They obviously want to defend their position because they don't want to be accused of being racists. They don't want it. It's the worst thing ever. You're going to be expelled from society if you are perceived to be that. So people are very guarded in their language and can barely talk about it. They just can't even find the words. They've been demonized to such a degree. But the countervailing arguments are never presented. The full picture of the discussion never comes out. It gets stuck right at the beginning on this emotionalism, as if you're an evil person, whereas in fact, when people work it through, what they will see is that it's the most respectful policy for all people. Not because I say so, but because nature has dictated it thus and has shown it to be thus. Of course, then what happens is they go, oh no, you can't have that because this is about white supremacism and all this kind of stuff. I have no idea what that means, except I've mentioned before that for me, because I am a white man, or working as hard as I can to be one, the white people are of supreme importance to me, just as I would imagine, I mean, I could be wrong, that Chinese people find other Chinese people of supreme importance to them. Who's going to be the carrier and who are you going to interact with on the levels of your culture, your history? The things that whilst you're down here do define you, they were the cards that you were dealt, and also considerable gifts have been bequeathed to us by our forefathers. Yet in the case of Germany, you are now being denied them. In the case of England, we are being denied them by what could only be really determined is as a class of rulers who are not actually representing us at all and have no intention of ever doing that, whilst pretending that that's That's what they're doing all the time. So, that international communism, now known as globalism, has worked to tunnel out the nations and to portray nations as the most evil things ever, because look at all the warfare, without pointing out that they were behind creating all that warfare in the first place, to begin the sort of breakup of nations so that they can be more easily managed in their global camp. Nothing new in what I've said. I just think it needs to be said every now and again.
Yeah, regarding the definition of who is British or who is German, and regarding the fact that there are so many migrants, not only let's call them fresh migrants who came in just a few months or a few years ago, but migrants who came here decades ago, second, third, or even fourth generation.
Mm-hmm.
And the people of India, thousands of years ago, had the same problem, and they found a solution. They have a caste system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, they are very strict in that, and the reason for the caste system is simply to keep the groups away from each other and to keep them separate.
And I think there's an element in the caste system of usury that goes on, where you're using the lower castes in order to prop up the Brahmin type people. I think the real crux of the matter is each culture has its own language, and a fifth generation Englishman, so to speak, someone that's been living there for 5 generations is going to have more to relate with another Englishman, whether they're white skinned or black. You're going to be able to communicate a lot better than you would with someone who speaks German, for instance. So there is a certain amount of cultural assimilation that goes on, whether I'm speaking as an American, because we're kind of mutts here. We have multiracial, whatever you want to call it, heritage, like French, German is typical where I'm at, but it's something else. We have I'm near Minneapolis, so, and we had the George Floyd riots not that long ago. And a lot of it is just because, it's easy to whip up people who don't speak the same language, who don't have the same culture, and get them to say, well, look at these people. These people have more than you do. Go and blame them and burn down their businesses because they're the ones that are oppressing you. And the people doing the finger pointing end up being the ones that have the real power of the media and the able to influence the culture one way or the other. So it's a real tough subject, because you do have race in the sense of ethnicity, and you're gonna have to deal with people that come in from another culture one way or the other, and then it's like, what do you do with them? Do you ship them all back in small boats like they came, or what are you going to do? That's where we're at right now.
Well, we are often told that race is only a color, and the children at school are taught that race is only a question of optics, and the human being inside is the real important thing. That sounds of course very good, and it sounds right. Also, when I speak those words now, it sounds right to me. But we have a very interesting person in our modern history. His name is Benjamin Disraeli, and there is a citation of him where he's saying racism is everything, or race is everything.
Well, I believe that to be the case, and I think nature demonstrates it. So I don't see any future for a race mixed population, because I've got no evidence to suggest that one of those has ever produced anything, and I don't think it ever can, because it's like taking different operating systems, mixing them all together on a network and expecting it to work out. You might be able to bumble along a bit, but it's very difficult for moments of excellence. This is my view. Someone might have some things to completely disprove this. I'm totally open to it. To arise, I don't think it happens. Culture comes out of race. It doesn't come out of anything else. It's not because of geography or anything like that. You put people in different parts of the world, they will respond in different ways. But when you're unified and you're talking with people who are literally using the same operating system as you, everything becomes much more practically useful, and you're able to make much wiser decisions because you know how you operate. You know how your fellows, your kith and kin operate. And tribal wisdom builds up because of that. Now, the argument on the other side is, well, if we actually pull everybody together and live in a multicultural world, which is what globalism is all about, then all those differences will be forgotten and it's going to be great. But you're going to end up, in my view, in a sea of mediocrity. And I don't think there's ever been a multicultural society. I don't think I live in one now. What I think I live in is pools of water and oil moving around with a lot of civility to hold it together, which is exhausting and is not a good use of your time down here. And of course, the view from the other side is, oh, well, because you're thinking like that, you hate everybody else. It's on the contrary. It's out of a respect for the actual true natural diversity of the races that I think that that's the only way to go. Not because I'm thinking it, but because nature has done it that way. It's a sort of an arrogance to say the creator that created this place got it wrong. No, you're getting it wrong. You're a little man and you just think you know better and you don't.
This is again a matter of frame sets being used. When you're talking about multicultural societies, I think it sounds nice. I like different cultures. I like the influence of different cultures. I like watching them. I like seeing them. I like experiencing them. And when we go to a very simple example, let's say I like fruits. I like apples. I like bananas. I like potatoes. I like strawberries. I like blueberries.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a multi how do you call it, culinary society, let's say.
Yeah.
When I now mix them all together, I don't have those experiences anymore.
You lose the flavor.
It's something different.
Yeah, and we lose the flavor.
We lose the farm. Yeah. Yeah, and the banana is not a banana because it's grown in an area where apple trees grow, but then it's still an apple. And
see how awkward we become. I mean, it's understandable. We're kind of walking on eggshells to even discuss it. It's the communications challenge is unbelievable with this. Why is it? Because people have lost contact. It's not just language. We've been, if I think about what this nation was like where I live in the 1960s, this sort of conversation it never happened. Didn't need to. No one goes around thinking, you see these phrases like, I looked around the room and it was all horribly white. What does that mean? It's ridiculous.
No, Paul, we have airplanes nowadays and mass transit. That's part of the issue. You have to admit that it's a lot easier to get on a plane in the middle of the night and go to another country. So this is one of the so-called modern problems that we have to face with this whole multicultural thing. Because it's just so easy to gas up a plane, load it with a bunch of people from another country and move them someplace else.
But why are they allowed in? I mean, there's certain...
that's just it, because they can.
You see, no one's against the idea of people from different races being in a place and getting on. But if you look at what actually happens, forget all the nice ideas on paper. What actually happens is, in my view, it goes pear-shaped pretty quickly. I've mentioned here, because I know of it, and I've mentioned Ezra Pound before and his work regarding the Byzantine Empire, the longest-lasting empire we know of. Now, people go, empires are terrible things. Well, they're where most of the art and the writing and the great work, it springs out of some kind of concentrated energy, a bit like the growth of a young child into, adolescent years and all that kind of stuff.
Empires are kind of a sign of decline, aren't they? In a way.
They get that way. Yeah, they're going to go pear-shaped. But they did not allow aliens to participate in the power structure of the civilization. You weren't allowed in. For example, we have people coming here and they get the vote. Why? That doesn't mean I hate them because I don't want them to have the vote. if this is not my home, I mean, it's not as if I own it. I know there are people on the planet who think they do own it. They're all going to die too and find out that that was a lot of horse shit as well. But whilst you're a steward here, there are certain values that you want to adhere to. I believe that's my conviction. Why? Because I see more goodness and less grief coming out of going along with the laws of nature than I do trusting supposedly clever men who think they know better and who clearly don't. Self-evidently from history do not know better, couldn't. These people don't even know what they are, just like the rest of us. We've got human beings running around on the earth with all this clever stuff perceived to themselves, but they don't know what they are. They don't know what no matter what religions profess, they don't know what happens when they die. They don't know this stuff. It's just a claim. There's a mystery down here, which is a delight. There's a reason for that, it seems to me. My take is that we're kind of in a polishing process. You ask me in a year's time, I'll have a different view. I'll use different language to describe it, because this is a journey that there are no ends. The ends don't justify the means because there aren't any ends. It never ends. So it's like, how do you want the journey to go? How do we really want it to go? And if we look at, say, the history of Europe with all the wars, from the French Revolution, and Napoleon particularly, and the parallels I mentioned before between what Napoleon was doing to defend his people and what Mr. Hitler was doing to defend his. That's the way I view it. Some people would argue differently, say I'm mad. But that's the way I view it. I was taught the opposite as a young child at school. But when you inquire into the accounts of the other side, you get a much fuller picture. This doesn't mean to say that what I've just said is completely accurate. I accept the one thing I've learned is that this is a process, and you're always coming across new things which readjust your perception as you go through. But there's a drive to do that. Why? Why is there a drive to do that? Because we're all mad and we're all warlike? No, we're not. We don't want any of that. We simply don't want to lose those things that we love. The things that we cherish, the things that we care for, that we try to steward, and we say, look, these different people have got these different qualities and characteristics. We should be saying, isn't that cool? Isn't that neat? And then people will say, yeah, but you in the West have got all this stuff. I completely accept. It is totally true that the corporations of the West, which don't represent, in my view, the great bulk of the people of the West, are sick things. Well, I played a quote on here a couple of months back from the First Lady of Sierra Leone. I should keep these things and a permanent sort of clip thing to keep playing them through because they're worth repeating. She was talking about the investment in Sierra Leone by foreign corporations, which are primarily American, British, and Chinese. They own most of Sierra Leone. And she said they will take out of the ground some stuff, lithium possibly, I don't know if they've got it there, but they'll take some stuff out of the ground that they need, some mineral or whatever. They'll take $100 million of it out of the ground and they will give to Sierra Leone $1 million. That's it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's warfare. It's abuse. It's theft. It's warfare. And if it's not direct overt military warfare, it's going to result in it at some point when those corporations decide to pull out and have to get everybody out because they've plundered it as far as they can go. And again, stepping back, is this orientation towards the financial system has created all of these sort of aberrations. I feel they're aberrations in human behavior, which don't build wealth. They just build people who've got purchasing tokens and want more than you. And when they've got those, history tends to show that they've got the power, like we've mentioned before, you know. And I know I always come back to this, but that's as good as my logic gets these days, and it hasn't changed for quite a while. I still view that as the epicenter. And really going back even to that conflict, so-called World War II, I put the economic bias in there very high up on my list. You know, the fact that your country, Thomas, under, of course, what we are supposed to perceive is dubious leadership and they were evil and all this kind of stuff, right? Which I don't buy into.
Which is an excuse to tax them to death.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's like Michael Hudson and his book, Forgive Them Their Debts. We need that. We need that type of mentality where you can forgive a whole nation, because they sanction whole nations. They have no problem, like our State Department here in the US. No problem.
You're right. And I would suggest in our culture as Northern Europeans, so we've got these different tribes forming nations, Germans and Dutchmen and Englishmen and Spaniards and so on and so forth. I would say, I could be wrong, but I think the normal grassroots people have a proclivity to forgiving situations because instinctively we know it's for the health of the village, which it is. But the predator patrician class, the creditor class, the usury class doesn't have that as a component in their makeup at all. And so we live in a completely false world where they're controlling all the information to sustain their ability to feed off of us, which now includes the removal of nations. They don't want that because you get all passionate about defending your nation and you're more troublesome. So all the good things that they say it's not about that at all, in my view. There's not a goodness to come out of this. And I think you can see that by looking at the sorts of characters that we are exposed to, like the Klaus Schwabs of this world, like Bill Gates, who's not even a man, but these characters and figures that they furnish us with, who are just ludicrously tiresome, but pretty scary people. They're scary people because you can't sit down and say, why do you be kind with your money? What? Why do you be kind? And I'm just going to go back to that thing I mentioned right at the beginning of the show with the heating bills over here. What is that all about? We haven't got enough money. What are you talking about? You've just sent £3 billion to Ukraine.
Well, it's like Germany and the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That's a heating bill, right there. They just blew it up. And then the people that rely on that in Germany for heating their homes have nothing to heat their homes with.
They do. The Thomas, you've not got a word in edgeways recently because we're blabbing so much. Well, I am. And we're coming up towards the end of the show. We're going to close out in about 3 minutes because I've got a song to play out from Leo Kottke, which I'm going to play out at the end of the show. Anything you'd like? We'd like to have you back. I'd like to have you back. I think the more often you're on, maybe we can develop this out more fully, and maybe I need more than one show a week to cover stuff like this because it touches on so many things.
How many people are online still on Rumble now?
60 odd, all chattering away. I'm sorry for ignoring you guys over there. Well, I haven't. I've caught a little bit of it, but So I'll read the latest comment is problem. I haven't even read this one. Problem is, Paul, the banker class seem to be the influencers of imported cultures, yes, by some weird osmosis. Materialism and self-obsession is their reason for being in many cases. I agree. It's an impoverished philosophy they've got, considering how much gear they've got. And of course, this seems to be it. The more gear, that's prosperity. No, it isn't. The wealth is in the goodness of people and in your relationships with them. How could it be anywhere else? They go, oh, we're going to dominate all these people and we're going to kill them. What are you on? I really do think they're going to have a lot to answer for. And, of course, they would laugh that off. I don't expect to have any, serious impact on them at all. But, we've got about a minute and a half left, Thomas. So if you want to say any final words here, anything?
I just wonder if there was a short question, perhaps. Which we
there
could
probably
answer.
is. I don't know. Short questions. There probably is in there, but there's a lot to read. You'll never get through that in 95 seconds. I can tell you. Listen, it's been fantastic having you back. It's great. And the song was just outstanding. I don't know what we're going to say about that. That was just absolutely fantastic.
Excellent.
song.
Excellent.
Yeah. Root Beer Rag. I'm letting you all know again. Root Beer Rag by Wise Guys. That'll probably pop up on this show again at some point. Fantastic stuff. So you've been listening to Paul English Live for the last couple of hours, nearly 3 hours. Thanks very much for being with us and everybody in Rumble. We'll be back again at the same time next week. Till then, stay safe and sound.
Hey, Paul.
We'll see you then. Oh, music's coming now.
Oh.
Thanks, Thomas.
What did you want to say, Paul?
Here it goes.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed! Bloody peasant!
We're being repressed. So we'll see you bloody peasants next week. And remember, bloody peasants are where it's at. Fantastic, Thomas. I'll speak to you maybe tomorrow or something. We'll see you all next week. Bye now. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.